You hear me? Can't hear you.
How about now?
You're muted.
Too much technology going on around here for us.
Well, I can tell you don't work in education because I'm used to this by now.
No, definitely do not.
2 years of all doing this with kids. I got it all figured out. So
yeah, we got I don't even know 4 years of podcasting and about zero learning on technology.
You still haven't figured it out.
What do you guys do? You just plug into a MacBook there?
Yeah.
I
have a mixer down here that was why we were muted, is because it was off. Is my wife has started her own podcast, so she comes in and takes all the shit out of here once a week, and then obviously definitely brings it back and puts it right back where it was. So yeah.
I can't even figure out my mixer. I literally just use GarageBand and a Yeti Nano microphone, and that's it.
Yeah.
I can't figure. I have a mixer and I have mics like you guys have, and I can't figure it out. And my buddy Greg's being a jerk and won't help me. So
I got this part down pretty good, and the sound down all right. Like now we'll just record this right on Zoom, and then Zoom's so great with the audio files, they actually pretty much self-level themselves. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, sorry I couldn't make it down, guys. I got two little kids, and I had something come up this afternoon that I wasn't expecting. And these old guys in TU, God bless them, but they have so many meetings, and like I'm always jumping on meetings at 7:00. So I just figured, 7:00. And
yeah, no worries, man.
No worries. Yeah, it's been chaos going around here for weeks. Finally, you talk about kids in school. York, I live in York, and my kids go to York, and out of nowhere, surprising is all hell to me, York actually voted or decided to lift their mask mandate. I've never seen my kids so happy in their life.
It was a glorious day.
She was up at 6:02 this morning for school. I was still in bed. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm just ready for school, Dad. And I was like,
how old is she?
She's 7. So this is her first time ever going to school without a mask today.
Yep.
And it's like, in part of me, very happy that's how it happened, just because she never knew what it was like before.
Right.
Like, I feel super bad for like the kids in middle school and high school. Like, I can't imagine playing sports. I'm like,
not playing. Like, kids missed a year of sports. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. Like
that's really bad.
Those poor kids, like, especially, how many high school athletes go on to play college?
Not many.
What, maybe 15%? And,
maybe not even that. But,
kids,
but imagine being a senior last year and losing your football season.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sucks.
Well, this is formally introducing. This is my buddy Garrett. Obviously,
Garrett.
We've been friends for, I don't know, a long time. And started this podcast like 4 years ago, and kind of just shoot the shit. And after going to your class, I figured you'd be a good guy to have on to talk.
Yeah, sure.
I know. I've followed you on Instagram for I don't even know how long. And then I was like, I asked Huey, I was like, this is his Instagram, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh yeah. I was definitely on there trashing the Maine state decisions with all of their management today with you.
I do. That's what I do. I can't stand the state sometimes. I just think that they're not doing things the way that they should be, and it's like, I'm a teacher. I'm a public servant as well. And, I just think that, it's your money. It's all of our money being spent, and we should have some say over what they're doing. And sadly, I think the biologists know the right things to do, but their hands are tied by, just license sales and catch rates. That's what it comes down to. So,
yeah. And I saw some of your back and forth today with, one guy brought up spin fishing, and it's like, it is a valid point, but we also have fly fishing only waters. And but that's where the amount of state influence stops. It's like, oh, well, we made this fly fishing only, so that should be good enough. There's no effort to make that river better. There's no effort to make actually stocked fish that are going to last. It's just throw the same stocked fish in that we expect to get fished out, and that's it. And it's, I look at, like states like Connecticut. I don't know if you've done like ever been down there fishing, but like they manage their fish population unbelievably well and have great opportunities. They've got spots for handicapped people to go fish. And then here we are in Maine, and it's just like, yep, pay us your money and just go fish wherever. But
yeah, I know people down in the Farmington, and like the fishing's unbelievable down there, like year round. And I mean, a big part of that is Maine's crazy in that we have all these dams, but they're all like top water dams. They're not bottom release. I mean, a couple of them are, but most of them are not. So it's
right.
like, yeah, they get nice cool water in the middle of summer down there, and you're like, what's going on? Connecticut's warmer than it is here, but there's a difference in that. And yeah, they manage it differently too, though,
And that's one of the things, like, I get into it a lot with waterfowl. That's my passion. I fly fish a lot. I can't say that fly fishing is not a passion, but duck hunting it's what I live for. And
awesome.
You look at the way migrations change. We talk about all this global climate change and all this, and I'm like, well, why can't we do like what Montana does in the summer with their fishing? Shut it down from 10 till 6. Yep. Just make an effort to try and save some fish.
Yep.
And it's, it's put on guys like you with your guiding, where it's like, okay, yeah, you've got a client, but you also want to be responsible for the fish that you're managing. So, it hurts you, because at least if the state was saying, hey, we're trying to save these fish, you could pass that on to your client instead of being the bad guy that's like, no, we can't go catch you that Maine trout you want because water temps are too high.
Right. And I can't sell something that's not there, or I can't sell something where we're just going to kill the fish by catching it. Like then it's not there tomorrow or the next day,
Exactly.
And, but the state also doesn't they don't sell smallmouth bass fishing. They don't push that at all. And they look at them as invasive. Well, it's like every single fish that you stock is also invasive, right? They're not like naturally there. So, but that's not on their agenda because it's not cool. Like brook trout are beautiful. Brook trout are cool, but like brook trout shouldn't be in a lot of the waters that they stock them in. They just live for the spring and then they die.
Right.
It's just that's why they want you to take them out. So, I mean, I don't know I feel like if the state did a better job of like pushing the fact that we do have smallmouth and pike fisheries, and like, let's manage them so that we can get fish up to bigger quantities and bigger sizes, why not have that option here as well? Like as a guide, I can't sell something that is being poo-pooed. They look at bass as invasive, and they are invasive in some places. Yeah. But there's other places where it's like the only fish there,
right.
Like Saco River, lower Saco River, lower Androscoggin, lower Penobscot, lower Kennebec. It's all bass and pike. Yeah. So
in the state of Maine, they stocked lake trout into Sebago, making it, taking one of
they destroyed the salmon population that way.
Not great.
And that's never coming back. I don't, as much they can manage it, kill all the lake trout you want. You're not bringing that salmon population back to what it is or to what it was. I just don't see that happening.
No, it's hard. And like they've done that in other places in the country too. Like you put in another fish to try to control a population, but then that fish gets out of control, right? And it's like at some point you should just leave stuff alone. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm at with it with some stuff. I'm like, listen, if the fishery isn't great right now and you're just stocking fish and keeping it artificially alive, just stop stocking. Like, why don't we just try it and see what happens? See if
that's what they did out west.
Yeah. Have you seen Montana Fish Story on YouTube?
Oh, it's the best.
That like Maine somebody needs to just be like, okay, let's do this. And I mean, Montana's fishing industry is what, $1 billion a year, something like that. However much money it is. I was talking to a guy that's going to be running for state rep in Southern Maine the other day, and he's like, "What are some things that you think?" And I brought up fish conservation and hunting conservation and stuff like that. And I said, "You guys make all this money. The state makes all this money on hunting and fishing licenses, but it goes into stocking and like I just don't see where that money's actually helping save the fish and getting more people here because it's a destination to fish. You know what I mean?
It's like it's a band-aid. I mean, nobody wants, like, no one's coming up here to fish for stock trout. You can do that all over the East Coast in any
Yeah.
state that
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And on top of that, like, if you stop stocking an area, right, and just see what happens, you're at least saving money by not stocking, right, which is huge. Like, you're saving money on all those fish that you would be putting in there.
Yeah.
And then, the other part of it is, it's like, just see what happens. That's what drives me nuts about it. It's like, instead of just throwing more fish in at the problem, like, that's not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
people aren't going to the Interscoggan River to catch 2-inch brook trout. It's just not a thing, but they throw them in there by the thousands,
Yeah.
every year.
So, like, I'll put you on the spot with this question. Say the governor says, all right, Aaron, you're the new inland fishers and you're the new commissioner. What is, like, some of your first actions to get the state back on track as far as fisheries go?
Well, I mean, to start with, the state can't do much with dams, but dams are a huge part of allowing more fish passage for more spawning to happen. But Maine's crazy diverse in terms of, like, the water that we have and the type of fish. Like, I think there's no problem with stocking the Presumpscot River. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a basically barren river that would just hold smallmouth in it. And you can hold trout there, some parts of the year, whatever, but there's no wild trout there. There's nowhere for those stock trout to become wild and go spawn, So for me, what I would do with, like, our stocking practices is I would look at what places need stocking versus what places do you just want stocking. I mean, the upper Androscoggin River is a great spot to start, because they started stocking there because people just wanted them to, you know what I mean? And it was like, that's not a good reason. Like, there's no science behind it, and you talked about Montana, and they took a huge risk by stopping stocking, and they looked at, restoring habitat, which I think is the better thing to do anyway, like, let's let nature do its thing, and let's clean up a little bit. So, geez, put me on the spot with that question there. There's so many ways I can go that. I mean, honestly, I would relook at the stocking program and saying, where do we absolutely need to stock, and where can we try not to, and see what happens.
Wonder how much money is wasted in stocking every year that they could be putting towards.
Some fish cost as much $25, $30 a fish. So if you're stocking 1 million of those,
and some spots they're stocking to feed pike and pickerel and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you go down the Mousam River in May and they dump a bunch of brook trout in there, and then a week later the stripers come in and have a nice
nice snack.
Yeah.
Charcuterie board of brook trout.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Did I get that term right?
Yeah. Well, that's, I would like to see them take, like, a more remote stream that they do stock, something that can be restored to to nature, maybe at some point, and then just say, okay, we're going to close this river to stocking, and we want to limit the amount of fishing. So however many days they want to do it, and then just let it try and go back to itself.
Yeah. And I mean, things have changed too. I don't know if you guys have, I always think about this, because, like, when I was in high school back in the early 2000s, like, I'd play football, and in the fall, September, it'd be like cold and rainy. I'd be sitting in practice and it's freezing out. And now it's like 80 degrees, like, for the first half of the month. So everything shifted, and our dates of fishing should shift with that in some ways. Like, I'll be honest with you, I love that we do an April 1st to September 30th on a lot of our rivers where we do have wild, or native populations of trout and salmon, because it gives the fish a break, right? And it lets them do their thing when they need to. Some states don't do that, man. I mean, you talked about Connecticut, they just stay open all year round. So you have to educate people when those fish want to spawn, of what to look for, what, maybe you shouldn't fish right now, stuff like that, and I love that the state does that. Like, I'm not, like, always dumping on the state, because I do think they do a lot of good things in the best interest of the fish, but their hands are also tied with the stocking stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like, they've just gotten into it so deep that they feel like they just have to hit the repeat button every single year and put the same fish back in. And it's a waste of money in a lot of places. You know, I could name 10 places off the top of my head where it's a waste of money to stock fish there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I ice fish one of them, and you know, they are putting fish in there for ice fishermen strictly, you know, and it is what it is. And I mean, my daughter caught a 18-inch hammer of a brook trout the other day. It was awesome.
sure. Yeah.
But also that fish is in there to do just that and then not go back. And it's like, there is no forethought to ever make this viable. It's just, keep selling licenses so we can keep affording to buy fish every fucking year.
Yeah.
And that's, that's the most frustrating. And then, but then on the flip side, you look at what they've tried to do. I don't know. I know you do a lot of trout fishing, but James, I don't know. You must know James Brown.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, you're York guys. Are you his age? Because he went to
Yeah.
York high school, right?
So James was a couple of years older than me. His brother Ian was in my class. So
Okay.
I know the Brown family, and like his biggest issue is the federal government along with the state in striper management and the fuck show that has been, and that's been overregulated and then changed and then overregulated again, and then they changed their regulations to undo everything that was ever done.
Yeah.
Now you're sitting here looking at like, do we have stripers? Yeah. But do we have the right stripers? No.
The problem is too, a lot of those striper guys' attitudes, like those commercial fishermen or the not commercial, but the full-time guides, that are doing the trips where they basically guarantee you get a keeper every day, right?
Yeah.
Just go sit over a bunch of like 30 to 40-inch fish and everybody on the boat gets one. And most people don't even eat them, they just take them home, leave them in the freezer, and then eat them. But, those guys, their mentality, sadly, is like, well, if the fish aren't here, then we'll just start stocking stripers. It's like, okay. Or we could take care of the resource to make sure that they're going to be here naturally, right? Instead of like relying on artificial fishing,
Especially when you're talking about a fish that's traveling, 600-800 miles every year.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with them stalking places like in York County. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of these streams and rivers are just way too warm.
Yeah.
To sustain trout. They don't have the spring holes in them. They're hitting 70 to 80 degrees, a lot of them. And I don't have a problem with, like you said, you took your daughter ice fishing. Like if that lake can't sustain trout and naturally, I don't see an issue with that part of it. It's just like, it's not a one size fits all issue, and it's like, they try stalking first before they try habitat management. That's what drives me nuts,
Yeah.
And it's
well, and
look at Montana. We talked about that, right? They did habitat restoration.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I noticed too about like, being down here, growing up here, you go around to where you used to fish and it's, no one's kept it up. No one's done anything. Like there's a few rivers that I used to float that you can't go 100 feet without a tree being in your way, because no one's doing any sort of land management. Whereas before, people are letting flows go. So you don't have huge pools. You don't have flooding. You keep the river flowing as it should. And I mean, yeah, it runs into a dam eventually, but at least you have a good flowing river. And, no one's out there doing that anymore, which is also part of the problem. But, it's the same thing with, waterfowl. What do? They just say, oh, well, we're going to cut down the amount of birds you can shoot. It's like, okay, but what have you done to try and make sure that more birds survive? Nothing.
More habitat for them, like that's what they need. We have more people on this earth. 50 years ago, we had half the amount of people we have. So more people naturally going to have more building. You're going to have more, forest degradation and, habitats being destroyed. But what are we doing to preserve what we have and then make sure it gets better in the future? And I just feel like it's always just like a Band-Aid. I mean, dude, they're going to start stalking ducks soon before you know it. What I mean?
Well, there's already places you can go to just to buy ducks to shoot, and it's insane.
There you go.
I don't have that kind of money.
I also do not duck hunt because there's so many like birds that are elite. There's so many types of ducks that are like illegal to shoot, right?
There are. It's always a good, Facebook is good for one thing, and that's just entertainment during duck season, when you always have that one guy that'll either post a sea duck in like October that they shot illegally, or, shooting common snipes off the beaches. And it's like, bro.
That'd be me though. I'd have no idea what I'm shooting. I just be like, oh, there's a duck whack.
Yeah.
You know?
But like one of the things that I listen to a podcast, it's all duck hunters, and one of the things that they try and push is education.
Yep.
Because a lot of people our age even didn't get the education of what's the right thing to do, what's the right thing to go about this, how to identify whatever, how to fish, why to fish, where to fish, when to fish. You know, exactly. A lot of people are getting into this in their mid-20s, kind of just going, I'm going to go out and give this a go. And if, you know, I'm doing something wrong and I'm gut hooking every fish, you know, unless you get checked, you know, how many guys are still not fishing with circle hooks for stripers with live bait? You know, it's, you know, stuff like that and why that's important. And that education is lapsing because of the generation before maybe didn't get everyone outside like they should have. So like those guys push, like that's why they duck hunt. And it actually opened my eyes, because I normally don't like to talk to anybody when I'm hunting. Same thing with like fishing. It's like, yeah, I'm fishing here. I'm never going to tell you what I'm going to use. And that's actually something I want to talk to you about. But like, you know, it's, you know, but the education of and helping someone out on the river or in the field or, you know, whatever it is, actually helps grow the sport, because you want people involved in your sports that are educated, not necessarily just there to partake, you know.
I mean, look at the hunter safety course, you know what I mean? Like, and people have been talking about this, like, it's so funny because we're the younger generation, and recently I hear more from the younger generation about, you know, education and conservation and stuff. And not that the old generation does not do that, but just so much from young guys now. I think social media is a huge part of that. But they look at, you know, they've been talking about having like some sort of course or some sort of handbook or something that you give every person who gets a license. I mean, you get that little orange book when you're hunting, right? About safety, and you have to take a course, right? Well, not suggesting everybody take a course, but look at how seriously they take hunting, right? I mean, yeah, you're using a weapon, but a lot of what's in that course is things that are like moral things, you know, like, you know, don't shoot a deer, you know, and if you don't have a good shot, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we don't do that with fishing. Like, fish are so low on the totem pole. Like, I mean, they're like below bugs almost. You know what I mean? They're below teachers. Teachers are at the bottom too. So
I actually listened to Greg's podcast, Mainely Guides. He talks a lot about that. And I actually just messaged him because I had like this epiphany the other night. I couldn't sleep, and I woke up, or I was laying there, and I came up with this idea where when you go to purchase your fishing license online, and you know, the website can tell if you've never bought a fishing license online before, that before you can check out, they put it in, so you have to watch like a 10-minute long video on fish conservation or fish handling, you know, that type of stuff. But
that's the idea.
I just don't think the state would even entertain the idea of doing that.
Well, we're in the minority. I mean, most people who fish, honestly, they fish so they can catch fish and keep them. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that in places where it makes sense and it's, you know, it's abundant or whatever. But we do also have places where it's not, and those places are protected. Okay, like, listen, a lot of the northern part of the state is protected pretty well in my mind. Like 2 fish, right? It's like a 2 fish limit usually. A lot of places, you know, some places that I fish, you can't keep any fish. It's all barbless and stuff. So I mean, there's some good regulations where they need to be, but we could be cleaning things up in these places where you have, you know, both wild and stocked fish that are existing. But I think, like you said earlier, a lot of that is also like, those are areas where there's spin fishermen. So that's a totally different game. But my example always goes to the Androscoggin River. It was a fantastic trout fishery in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was a ton of guides working there. It was a busy place. And they wanted to introduce brook trout because they wanted clients to be able to catch more fish. So, like, I mean, that literally was people just coming up with an idea, going to say, hey, can we stock brook trout in here? And fish stays like, okay, you know, it's like they have no problem stocking, but they have a problem stop stocking. Because now I'm like, well, listen, that fishery sucks. It's gone to hell. The water's been cleaned up. It's fantastic water. There's a good amount of bug life. There's not a lot of great holding water for fish. The water's been so low there, just these last 3 or 4 years. But with that being said, though, if there's not a lot of good holding water and there's holdover fish there, you're putting all these stock fish in there who are now coming in, eating their food, taking up their space. You know, it's kind of like they're illegal immigrants to the river. You know,
Yeah.
just coming in, taking all your resources, and we're not giving them a chance. You know what I mean? So, I mean, look at that river. You can't even keep fish out of there. It says in the law book that you should keep 2 fish per year and eat 2 fish per year out of there because there's so much mercury in the water.
Yeah.
So my argument to the biologist who I literally just contacted a couple weeks ago, and I've contacted him a couple years about this, it's like nobody's going to that river to go catch a 10-inch brook trout. Like if you want to do that, you can do that on any stream or any little brook in the state, you know. We need to make that into like a brown trout and rainbow trout fishery like it was. So I'm like, why don't we just stop stocking brook trout and see what happens? Because there's also a wild brook trout population in there. That obviously they lose good holding water to these stocked fish. So it's just why not stop? You know, like that's my thing. Like just try it. Try it for 2 years. See what happens.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like I will go up, I'll fish. I like one of my favorite places to go just because I've always liked to fish it is the wild. Yeah. I like to just go up and walk it. And I mean, they do stock some, but there's also some really nice rainbows in there. And then you go down where it hits the Andro and get some good fishing in there. There's some good holes right there. But then I will always stop. There's a small stream on the way out of Bethel headed north, and it holds wild brook trout. I will always take my 6'6" 3-weight and hit that stream, and it will be the most fun I have all fucking day. And it's what the way. And if anyone that's listening has never caught a wild brook trout versus a stocked brook trout, it is like driving a Ferrari and driving a Peugeot. Like it's just, they are a different animal and it is so much more fun. And like, I look at that little stream and I'm like, I don't know how you guys are living in here. I'm thankful that you guys make it. And it's just, it's a fun spot. And, down the road, there's a nice little farm stand on the side of the road where you drop in $5 and get yourself some cookies. And
it's not stocked either. That's the other thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, there's so much common sense there. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. I want Maine to be like a mini Montana. I would love Maine to be a place where people could be like, you know what? I want to move there and be a full-time guide. There's 120, 150 days a year on the water and maybe get to catch multiple species, but we're not soliciting any of that, and we're not helping any of it by just continually stalking in areas where we're not giving the area a chance, to kind of bounce back. And go ahead.
I think with the right, I really think Maine has that possibility to be like and I've never been to Montana, but just from what I've read and what I've seen, I think Maine, from the history, they have that ability to be that, what you're saying. But
they do to some extent. We don't have 14,000 foot mountains around us. They're just pouring down cold water all the time. However, though, we do have these like ridiculously long rivers where at the head of them for the first mile is good trout water. And then the next 59 miles is all, bass water because you have all these dams, right? Some of which I agree with being there and some of which I don't agree with being there. Some of them are generating electricity or they're creating a good fishery below them. And then others are not. They're just creating warm-up effects and you're just getting these bathtubs, and there's a kind of talking about dams for a second. There's a book called, on the spot here. It's blue something. It's about the dams in Labrador and Quebec, like in northern Labrador and Quebec.
Yeah.
And they talk about how those dams are so big, they're holding back water into the ocean and pushing warm water back in the ocean, causing, glacial melt and all that stuff. Everybody talks about cars and fossil fuels, and I'm sure that plays a part into it, but no one talks about that either. When you put a dam in, what's it create? It creates a giant swimming pool,
Right.
It creates a it just creates a big warm water effect. And then that water over time just pushes back up the river and gets warmer and warmer. And the warmer water, you get less bug life and you get more algae, and you just, it's not good. And Maine is such an old state, it's the East Coast is just the oldest part of our country. And maybe that's why the West is better fishing too, because they didn't put all those dams in, they didn't have the logging industry that we did. And
yeah.
Well, and even
that.
When they did do it out there. So I used to work in the hydropower world. I actually worked for a small engineering company out of Maine that we upgraded a lot of the dams, more of their infrastructure and like how they run. I mean, they're there, but a lot of the dams out west, what they did was they used a canal system. So they diverted some of the water from the river instead of just saying, fuck it, whole thing shut off. And like, there's other options out there to increase your flows around these units, but no one is interested in spending that much money because all these hydro plants, I mean, it's free power allegedly, but they're hanging on by tooth and nail. So they're not going to put the money into it.
No,
but like,
I don't have a problem with hydropower.
No, but
at the end of the day, it's a dam. If it malfunctions, like the West Branch over the last 4 years, 3 out of the last 4 years in June, they've had to shut the dam off due to some sort of malfunction. And what happens? All that water below it just goes away. So you have fish and puddles. You have all these aquatic bugs that are no longer underwater who are going to die because they're not getting what they need. They need to be in the water, right? Like a stonefly nymph isn't meant to be on land until it's ready to hatch. So it's like that stuff's all dying. You're like killing off generations just from that little stuff there. So
exactly. And that's where I'd like to see the state say, okay, we're going to do a state sponsored project on some of these dams to not allow that to happen. Whether we have to put in sluice gates around these dams to allow water to go through so you can have your maintenance and you guys can continue to operate, but allow us to still get water downstream because we have to. And it's like, there's options out there to deal with dams, whether like if it's not generating power and it's not going to flood out an entire town, if we open them up, get rid of them all. I restore nature back to what it was. But then if you're not going to do that, you have other options out there. There's engineering solutions to everything, like, I mean, down in Saco, they've got a fish elevator.
Yep.
It's the most insane thing I've ever been a part of. Like,
cool.
It's awesome. And, they've got biologists that work for them and they watch all the fish that go up. And, that's a modern solution to a old world problem. So let's do that and take away some of the billions of dollars we're spending on stupid fish that are just going to die anyways, or kill the fish we want to save. Yeah. And put those into capital projects to upgrade these dams, allow water to flow around. Like it's not hard. I mean, it costs money, but we're, how many years have we been so stock happy of how many millions of fish and millions of dollars have we just thrown down the tubes because the state thought that's what it was supposed to do?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a really touchy subject because some dams should be there, some dams shouldn't. Some places should be stocked, some shouldn't, right? It's like all these things, but we know which ones are best. I mean, if the general public, if you and I don't know you very well, but we're all just probably a bunch of idiots who like to fish and hunt. Like, we know these things out of common sense.
Yeah.
Then you would think at a higher level, they'd be like, all right, this is what needs to be done for the fish. When it comes to wildlife, deer and moose, they bend over backwards for them. Like they have ridiculous management plans for them. Fish, they just put out the new management plan for the next 15 years. That's what I was bitching about on Facebook. It's all about like stocking this, stocking that, stocking this. There's nothing in there about, we're going to try to restore this water. Like it's just tough, man. And then you have these side organizations like Trout Unlimited who come in and they actually do like that restoration work, but they have to go through so many hoops with it. And then the state doesn't really it's sad that the state isn't initiating that. It's being initiated by a bunch of people who are just passionate about restoring this piece of water. I just jumped on Sebago to you like 6 months ago, and I'm trying to help them just bring in a little younger population and get some like boots on the ground, like get younger people like get out, go to this brook, and we're gonna fish and we're gonna survey it, and we're gonna look for culvert problems or erosion or whatever. to try to restore stuff and make it better, like literally getting on the ground with your wading boots and trying to help out. But at the end of the day, it takes an organization of volunteers to be able to do these things. And what's crazy about like TU is, like I said, it's literally just showing it. And they're like, what do you want to see done? And I'm like, well, I want to see this, this, and this. And like, okay, let's try. Let's go after this. Let's do this. Like, it's just a group of people who have an interest. Like if there was a brook running behind your house and you're like, there was brook trout in there when I was a kid, and now there's not, like TU will like help you try to restore that.
Yeah.
State doesn't care.
No.
But a group of old guys will, and women, and it's very interesting. It's very eye-opening. And I also think like TU is doing so much stuff that nobody knows about. And we're working on streamlining it and letting people know about the things we're doing, because I do feel like there's this generalization of like, yeah, the state's not doing anything, nothing's changing, but there are people out there trying to make a change with things and do things. It's just not well publicized yet, and it's not really well known. So everybody just thinks everybody's sitting on their duff, not doing anything, but there are people that care. Fish just come last, and it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So,
well, especially because, I mean, this state was known for its outdoors, right? And so why don't we, and like you said, like we don't even, I mean, I don't know if you know Joe Holland. He's from down east. He's a huge ice fisherman. He's got a huge ice fishing channel. Cool. And he used to do bass fishing down in like Florida and stuff. But anyways, he is a huge proponent of like, he's going up and he's fishing Maine's invasive hated species, and he's showing you how to pike fish. He's going after all these, going after northern pike, going after bass, cusk fishing, togue fishing on Sebago. And he's like, we're never, ever going to, whatever they try and do with Sebago, no one in the next 300 years will ever be able to keep a salmon out of Sebago. Sorry.
Right.
It is what it is. And with the more people that move into Portland, the entire water source of Sebago is jeopardized. So why not manage your togue population instead of kill it? Yep. Because togue fishing in Maine at Sebago it's in southern Maine. You're going to have a shit ton of people come. Yep. And people will fish all summer for them, and then they will fish all winter for them. It's a huge influx to the state and a huge, economical generator. So instead of just telling people, yeah, just go there and catch fucking 40 fish and kill them all. And, there was articles last year when they did that, or 2 years ago, when they had a huge kill day on Sebago. Yep. There was I think there was over 20,000 fish dead on the ice. Yeah. And
it's silly.
I hate seeing that.
Yeah. And even being someone that, I do like to eat fish, but I'm not going to, but I was raised and it's the way I always am. And I mean, I've kept one trout this year. Yeah. And it was ice fishing. And it was from a body of water that can't sustain it. So, it was the first trout of the year. Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll smoke it and eat it. Sounds good. Other than that, I have not kept a fish except for one striper that my wife has caught in, I don't know, 20 years.
Well, I don't, to be very honest with you, I'll eat a brook trout every now and then, but it's usually from like a pond up north where there's a great population of them. And I'm not hurting anything by keeping a 12-inch one. But to be brutally honest, I don't want to eat trout that are raised in a tank.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to. And a lot of people do. And it's very, very interesting to me. I mean, that's Maine. And to them, a trout's a trout. But I don't know. I don't see I don't have an appetite. Like when I go to the Gray Wildlife Park with my kids and go look at the fish tanks in there, I'm not like, oh yeah, hey.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sitting at Cabela's. Oh, look at all the deformation on that one's fins. Oh. Yeah, well, let's eat that one.
Last year, I ate a stock brook trout that I caught.
Yep.
Just because.
I've done it.
And then I ate a trout that was caught by my grandfather at Cup Septic Lake, and it was 100% different, and just way better. And
and they're just getting worse and worse. Like the stock trout are just getting more and more genetically weak. They look awful. They're thin. I call them pancake trout because they're like growing like bigger in size, like up height wise, but then they're just like wicked thin.
Well, you think about it, it's like I mean, not to get weird, but it's like incest. All right. So if
It
that,
isn't.
you know, that family tree is just straighter and straighter by the year. And pretty soon you're going to get some cross-eyed, weird looking motherfuckers from West Virginia sitting in your house. And, you know,
Well, and that's you don't see, you can always, you don't have that square tail like a
Yeah.
native brook trout should. They half their fins are fucked, and it's like it's not even a good looking fish. You catch a nice native, the colors on it are unmatched. You can't recreate that in any fucking lab. I don't care. And it's like that's what the people, I think that's what most people in Maine are probably passionate for. Now the problem is the people that are going to be the loudest are the ones that aren't. And it's the guy that wants to go down with his spinning rig and go catch his 6 trout. I mean, I've watched it. We've got a couple local rivers around here that they stock the absolute ever living shit out of.
Yeah.
And it's not a fish that lives out of that fucking thing, whether they're caught and kept or they just die because of the water. By the time they drop them in halfway through May, it's already fucking 60 degrees.
Right.
But
I don't have a problem with that though. Like I don't have a problem with them stocking that river, right? Like
right.
if they're just artificial trout, they're going to be put in and taken out by people, and that's what they enjoy, whether it's spin or fly fishing. If you enjoy taking those fish and eating them, that's fine, that's cool. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just like to see more, us taking care of places where there's wild fish.
Yeah.
Like stop stocking immediately, like start there, like literally stop stocking around there. Because are you driving 3 hours to go catch stockfish? Or are you driving 3 hours to go get a shot at a nice wild one?
Well, exactly. And that's what I was gonna say is the only reason I go and fish those is to scratch the itch until I can get the hall pass from the wife and get away from the family for, whether it's a day trip and I get up at 2:00 in the morning and go hammer to the North Maine woods somewhere, or it's, a 2-day, 3-day, go book an Airbnb and do a boys trip,
What I'm worried about, Southern Maine, right? Like it's lost in terms of trout habitat. There's too many people. There's way too much, there's been way too much construction here, and the water just doesn't support it, the temps and stuff. But what I'm worried about is as those temps up north increase, right, and habitat starts to kind of, fall apart, and we haven't done anything to take care of it or help it out. Like at some point, those wild fish won't be there, and then it's gonna be like, all right, well, let's just stock it. Like the day they start stocking the West Branch of the Penobscot River is the day that I stop fly fishing in Maine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're not that far away from it, probably, especially with this mindset.
Yeah.
You look at you ever fish the Rapid River?
Yes.
So like the Rapid River is well known for having smallmouth that got into Lake and Bagog and came up, and they've taken over a lot of the river. You still have a decent brook trout population in there, but they've also, started stocking a bunch of, salmon and then brook trout in the lake up above it, Lower Richardson. And those fish come down through the dam. It's not hard for them to do that. And then they're in the river. So it's like, oh, well, there's bass in here. And I think almost like non-publicly, they just started, if you go look at the numbers, it's insane. I was actually looking yesterday because I was arguing with a guy on Instagram there. And they put like 13,000, 2-inch brook trout in there back in 2013. So it's like, is the state saying, okay, there's so many bass in this river now, we got to start stocking it to make it, so it comes back to what it was, or so that it's still sustainable with brook trout in it, and it's like, Greg, I don't know if you listen to Greg's interview with Bob Mallard.
Yeah.
But Greg told me this a long time ago, and it makes a ton of sense. I mean, Yellowstone Lake in it's either Montana or Wyoming. I think it's in Wyoming. I think it's down in the park. But they have great cutthroat population forever. And then I believe they introduced lake trout to help with some bait fish population to like monitor it, just like they did in Sebago back in the 70s.
Yep.
And Yellowstone Lake's a huge lake, and they electroshock fish there to try to get the lake trout out. There's so many lake trout charters on Yellowstone Lake, it's not even funny. And they're encouraging you to catch and keep everything. Well, they have like boats that you can use that are not metal, I'm assuming, and they can electroshock fish up, and it doesn't kill the fish, but you can take the fish out that you want. I mean, Yellowstone Lake's huge. It's a huge body of water. Why can't we do that on a pond in the river in July and August when all the bass are in there? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's
like a week.
Yeah. You go there and you know when the trout aren't there.
Yeah.
So why not try and at least maximize your efforts there and take out
when they're on their bed, when the bass are on their beds, you know where the beds are. I know where the beds are. Everybody, like biologists, know where the beds are. It's in a report. You can read about it. And you can see if you just drive a canoe down the west side of the shore there. But it's like, why not go in there when they're on their beds, electroshock them, take them out, wipe their eggs out, and like do that over the course of a couple of years.
Or use your stocking trucks for transporting and relocate them to another body of water.
Bring them to every campground in this state that's got a pond that people like to catch bass out of.
Exactly.
Throw them in. I was watching a YouTube video with one of the meat eater guys, and he was out in the Snake River, and they were talking about their cutthroat population and how it was getting overtaken by rainbows. So they'll go in and electroshock rainbows up, and they'll put a tag in some of the heads, and then they basically put a bounty on them. You keep the fish, you put it in a fish box at the boat launch, and some of them, if they get scanned, there's like $100 bounty on them. So
why don't you do that bass on the rapid?
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, let's electroshock them up. Let's put a tag on them. Let's encourage people to go in there and catch them. I mean, you want to catch bass on the rapid? Just take any big old white streamer fly, shuck it around all day. You're going to have yourself a nice time anywhere from June through September on small. Like, it's not rocket science. And you're right, though. If you bountied them, you just get more people doing that, and you have to encourage people to take them all out of there, whether you're relocating them or bring them to food banks. You know what I mean? Like, smallmouth isn't bad eating, and that's good
originally
water.
How they came into the state.
Right.
That's what I listened to that on one of Greg's podcasts, where they were actually stocked for farmers to eat.
Yeah.
And
it's like all the pike.
Yeah.
That was all loggers.
Yeah.
None of those.
Did you know in Minnesota, I believe, I don't know, I'm quoted because I'm on a podcast here, but I'm pretty sure it's like 250,000 people. It's in the hundreds of thousands where people go fish for pike on opening day in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Over 200,000 people go and do this. And they also don't allow you to fish during their spawning period, right? So they have a date they set, May, whatever, May 5th or whatever they believe it is based off of, previous years spawning. Here in Maine, they don't care. You can go fish for them on their beds, whatever you want to do. You can fish, people target them when they're spawning because they get pissed off and they'll eat a fly, and we're not, think about that. 200,000 people are doing that on opening day. How many people are fishing for pike here on a daily basis? 20?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Unless it's the Sabatis tournament.
But even like the Sabatis fish suck now. They're all tiny because they've taken all the big ones out because they're just like, kill them. Yeah. Instead of manage that water for what it is. But if it's not beautiful brook trout, they don't give a shit. And that's the real issue,
And I don't know if nobody in that office understands that a stocked fish will never be a beautiful Maine brook trout, because if you've ever caught a stocked fish versus a wild brook trout, it's fucking acres of difference between what they look like.
Sure.
And I don't know, it's been one of the things that, like, just learning so much more about, like, especially there's a podcast I listened to talking about, duck migrations and how much that's changed because of our temperature changes and where they're going. And they said, you know what? It doesn't matter what you do to bag limits will never, ever affect any sort of migratory waterfowl resurgence.
Yeah.
Because it's nature. And they go, there's a reason why you can always shoot more males than you can females. The reason is because females sit on the ground with their eggs. Okay, so what kills all the females? Well, predators. How many people trap nowadays? I mean, same thing goes to fishing. How many things are in there eating small fish versus 30 years ago when we had bounties on coyotes, foxes, people were actually trapping these animals. Now you've got urban environments that just allow, I mean, there's posts on everyone's fucking, local Facebook page about, oh, there's this family of foxes, watch out for them, don't shoot them. And it's like, no, just kill them. Fuck it, they're fine. Like,
They're fine.
It's, there's humans are bad, but we're nowhere near the predator that nature is. So it's like, you have to take care of your habitat before you ever worry about what humans are doing as in way of taking from that habitat.
Yeah. I work at a small engine shop here in Southern Maine, but we're also like an agway, so we're a feed dealer and sell chicken food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We sell a lot of bird seed and deer food too. And like deer food is super popular this time of year because people like to watch the deer in their yard. And like there's a huge shortage of it right now. So people are coming in and they're like, what am I going to do? I can't feed the deer. I said, those deer will find something to eat. They are wild animals. You shouldn't be feeding them in the first place. And one lady was freaking out about it. And I'm like, what do you do when you're hungry and you don't have any food in the house? She's like, well, I go get food.
Yeah.
Bingo. The deer will do the same thing. And it's, I don't know. We could talk about conservation and hunting and fishing
we could, but we need, like, we have a huge problem now in the state, and especially the southern part of the state, with ticks, right?
Yeah.
We need more hunters to limit the deer population, because the deer are the host. The deer are what the ticks are crawling on all day, right?
And you know what they do to combat that is they just keep pumping out deer doe permits to people.
Yep.
That never get shot. Like there's no friggin' it's almost like they need to.
Not enough hunters. There's not enough hunters for them. It's like turkeys, right? Like everybody who turkey hunts, not everybody, but most people go out and they shoot a turkey in the first hour because they're freaking everywhere. You know what I mean? And it's not even a cool thing anymore. Like turkey hunting in the 90s was like awesome. Like it was like a trophy to get a nice tom, and now it's just
wasn't as many of them
the first day, and no one does it.
Yeah, I could shoot 17 out my window every day in the spring.
Exactly. But that's like it's just like we're talking about stock fish, right? They're everywhere. Nobody wants them though. People want rare, right? They want something. It's like going, moose hunting. There's not as many of them. People want a moose hunt. It's a really big deal because you can't just shoot one in your neighbor's backyard, and it's like
everybody wants to shoot the big buck because they can't see it.
Yeah, the problem is like we have all these, places to fish for wild brook trout, but it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the demand is going up for them because people want authentic, real experience. No one's flying up here from North Carolina to go stay in Portland, go fish the Brazumsky River. And any guide who's taking $400 to take people over there, it's just they should be doing something different.
Yeah, right.
It's not a good experience to sell, but I shouldn't even say that though. I live in Southern Maine, and you get people who are like, "Oh, I'm coming to Portland. I want to go fishing," and you're like, "All right, well, it's middle of July, so we're gonna go do some bass fishing, on the Andro or something like that."
Yeah,
and people just want to go out and have an experience too, which is cool, and it's great that we have that, but we're just not doing a good job of promoting what we have where we have it, and that's what's frustrating to me. So it's like, as a guide, if you try to explain to somebody why they can't catch a trout in July around Portland, Maine, it takes me like 30 minutes. Like it's not even worth my time. What I mean? I'm like, let's just go bass fishing. We don't need to talk about trout, because
we'll talk about it on the ride. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on the ride, but it's like they're not there, and here's why, and here's why, and here's why, and it's like, I don't know. It's just it's very complex. I mean, we have a huge state, and we have a lot of water, and we just need to do a better job of managing water individually instead of making a one size fits all rule for them. So,
well, and I mean, how many people too that are coming into Portland for the day that are going to hire a guide really want to take that, 3.5, 4 hour car ride up north?
And
then hike, 2 miles in and go bust your ass and go fish hard. Like
they want to sleep in, and they want to be the old port by 6 for dinner. It's like, so we have a limited opportunities there, but again, there's a ton of bass fishing that we could be doing in Southern Maine with people. and we don't promote it at all because that fish is looked at as taboo because it, destroys wild brook trout habitat. It does, but so don't the stock trout that you're doing too, but you're pushing those just fine. It's like,
no matter what we do, the bass that are in southern Maine are in southern Maine. I mean,
think about the industry. Like we were talking about Minnesota, right? Minnesota has a lot of rural parts, just like Maine. And think about all of the business that gets brought to those small towns when they do pike fishing in the spring, right? I mean, hundreds of thousands of people are going. We could be doing that to all of our little industrial towns, Lewis and Auburn area, Jay, Livermore Falls, Rumford, stuff on the Kennebec, stuff on the Penobscot. Like we could be doing all that, but we do nothing to promote it.
Right.
Nothing.
And I mean, 4-pound bass on a 5-weight is still fun as fuck.
Listen, in July, okay, there's nothing that beats a float down one of the rivers and just catching smallmouth all day long. They fight wicked hard compared to most freshwater fish, okay? And it's just a fun day. Like it's a fun day overall, but we don't promote that. No. We promote you to go catch stock trout in 70-degree water. It's like,
in fact, I told my wife wants to learn how to fly fish. And I said, well, we're going to take a trip this summer with Aaron and he's going to teach you how to fly fish for smallmouth bass because I can't teach her.
It's fun. It's easy. Yeah, that's funny you say that. I always get couples who want to go out because I mean, my wife doesn't fly fish with me a lot because I'm sure I'm annoying, and like this is kind of off topic, but I love when I take couples out because what usually happens is like the man usually wants to just go and fish on his own. Yeah. And he wants to know some spots and some flies to use, but he really just wants someone to babysit his wife for the day. So he can say, hey, we got this whole Maine experience in and we get to go together and stuff. And it's like, nah, dude, you stuck her with me for the day. And then you went and bailed so you could go fish and justify it. Yeah. But literally the best part is the man doesn't listen as well as the woman. That's just natural. Yeah. And the
women doesn't
they'll catch bigger fish. Yeah. They'll catch bigger fish or more fish because they're hanging with me all day. We'll take all these pictures. You meet them after 2 hours upriver or whatever, and they're like, hey, I was fishing going good. Oh, I caught one, I caught a 13-inch one. I'm like, oh yeah, look at this one, Yeah. And he's just like, head shaking. I've come across that scenario like at least a dozen times in the last 3 years doing that. So it's pretty funny. I like that. So always good to go on a guided trip though with your spouse. It's so hard to do, bring them out there and want them to feel that same way you feel. You can't emulate it for them all the time, and it's hard.
I brought her to the Presubscat last spring, and I mean, I got there and I started fly fishing. We didn't even bring a spin rod with us, and she's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I said, "I don't know. I told you this. I was going to fly fish." So she sat on the bank, and I think I fished for an hour because she was not happy with me. But
yeah, I mean, it's funny because like when I bring my wife out, dude, it's in the fall. There's no bugs. It's beautiful, cool. The weather's nice. It's not too hot. It's not too cold, and like I'll always bring her then. But she'll get a small taste and be like, I can understand why you like it out there so much, whatever. Well, the minute you bring her in June when there's black flies biting and I'm fishing literally for 14 to 16 hours straight, like they don't get it that much. You know what I mean? They're not that on that level of obsession. Yeah, so.
Exactly. I mean, I've taken my wife. I taught my wife how to fly fish, and I don't think I've ever outfished her ever. Yeah, it's just I don't know what the fuck she does, but she's just so much smoother and she'll just outfish me every time. But same thing, like I'm like, oh, we're going April 1st. Like it's just tradition. We're just gonna go. And she's like, it's gonna be like 26 degrees. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm gonna freeze my ass off. She's like, yeah, I'm not going. I'm like, okay. Right. Yeah. And then same thing with duck hunting. Like she'll come duck hunt with us, and it's actually how we met. And it's like yeah, it's raining too hard. I ain't going. And I'm like, this is the best day. This is what I live for. I want to go out there. I want to be fucking absolutely drenched, fucking miserable. But it's some of the best days I've ever had are like that. And half of them probably aren't, but I don't remember those because I'm selective, and I just remember the great days in the rain.
Yep.
So I guess pivoting a little bit, who got you? I mean, because none of our listeners know you. I know you from our fly tying class. What got you passionate into fishing?
This sounds really corny, but it's very true. It's someone just took a kid fishing when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I wasn't even a little kid. Like, I didn't grow up fishing. My dad's an attorney in Westbrook, and he's a great dad, great guy, but he works like 70 hours a week, and he wasn't big into doing outdoor stuff. So it's funny I say that because I've taught him how to fish over the years now, and he loves it, enjoys it. But yeah, my uncle like asked me if I wanted to go fishing on this bass pond when I was 14, and then we made a thing of it every week. We went every week. I loved it. I mean, it's just spin fishing, and it was a blast. It was some of the best fishing memories I had in my life. And then he brought me as a graduation gift up to the West Branch. We stayed at Frost Pond Camps, which is just beyond T-Loss Dam there, and Rip Dam. On the T-Loss Road. But he brought me up there, and dude, I mean, listen, I didn't have any fly fishing gear, nothing. I was spin fishing. He had a fly rod. We're both standing in the river with jeans on and no shirt, just baking in the sun like a couple rednecks, and there's a couple bald eagles flying overhead, and he hooks into this salmon and lands it on the fly rod. He had no idea what he was doing. It was just shit luck, really.
Yeah.
But something in my brain was just like, that looks really cool, and I want to know more about that. And then, as you guys know, and I don't know you as well, Garrett, but I know you, Hugh, like you're like becoming obsessed with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like brain worm. It's this brain worm to the point of like, you made a podcast about it where you want to talk about it every week, and like, for me, it lit a little tiny spark, when I was like 18, and then from there, I was just like, all right, I'm going to figure out everything I can about this. And I got, hook, line, and sinker obsessed about it. I was going to LO Bean at 11 o'clock at night when all the people weren't there, so I could go talk to the guy in the fly fishing department and just pick his brain for like an hour. My buddies are on the Oport, and I'm up there picking some old guy's brain on about fly fishing.
That's what Jim has turned into me. Turned like for me at the fly shop is going and talking to him. I was in there buying material not too long ago after our class ended, and I was like, this $40 class that you guys put on has cost me a lot more than $40.
Oh yeah.
And he just laughed. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know, the $200 in fly tying material I bought in the last 3 weeks. Yeah, just
it's like going to the grocery store without a list. You're not leaving there cheap.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's but it's a brain worm, it's something you're just like, all right, what's next? And I love that about it because it never gets old for me. There's always something to learn or do that's new, and I mean, I barely have even striper fished on the fly. I've done it like 10 times, and I haven't even
that.
Yeah. I haven't cracked the surface on it, and there's so many places you can go with it. And I've been to some ridiculous places around this country that I never, ever would have even thought about going to if it wasn't fishing. And I'm literally at the point now, it's like, oh yeah, hey, my wife's like, oh, my friend's getting married down in Virginia. And I'm like, oh, sweet. And I'm like, instantly look up Virginia fly fishing guides.
Exactly. Well, that was half the reason I took the job, working in hydro. I was like, hydro's on the water. That means there's fish. And sounds good. So, sign me up. I carried a fly rod and a spinning rod in my truck with me, and just wherever I was. I think I shelled out $700 in licenses in 1 year. Just, I'm in Idaho today. Oh, sounds good. Fuck it. We're fishing. We're down in the Smoky Mountains. Okay, yeah, I'll fish it. But it's funny you mentioned like just taking a guy fish, a guy taking you fishing, because I grew up in Southern Maine. My father is in the Merchant Marine, so he ships out, went to Maine Maritime. He still ships to this day. So
awesome.
6 months a year, he's gone. 6 months he's home. But we never got really into fishing. My grandfather was a registered Maine guide. He was actually on the Allagash on a float plane trip as a guide when my father was born. Never taught my father how to fish, never taught my father how to hunt. Like, went hunting with my dad once. So like, it was crazy. And so like, I have all my grandfather's old, I've got 2 fly rods here. I've got all his old flies that he had and shit like that. But you know, his health declined so much by the time I was ever interested. I never learned from him. My father never learned how to fly fish. And so a buddy of ours actually has a place down in Connecticut, near the Salmon River, and was like, hey, will you come down and help me do a bunch of work on our cabin? And I was like, absolutely, if you teach me how to fly fish. He's from Colorado. His dad taught him. So I went down, learned how to fly fish at like 22 or 23 years old. And ever since then, I couldn't tell you the last time. Actually, I could because of kids now. But prior to having kids, I couldn't tell you the last time I touched a spinning rod.
Yeah.
It was just as soon as that first fish, I'll never forget it. The first fish I caught on my own, never forget it.
Yeah.
First fish I caught on a adventure I took up on the wild, I'll never forget it. I missed it 3 times in a row. I almost snapped my rod in fucking half. It's like, it was one of those, crystal clear pools.
Yeah.
And it was just a beautiful rainbow. And I missed him 2 times on a fucking red humpy. And I literally turned it. I was with the guy that taught me how to fly fish. I turned to him. I go, if I miss this fish one more time, I'm breaking my rod in half. And then you're going to come fish this and catch this fucking fish. And I caught it. And it's like, but it's funny how, even though like my father's super outdoorsy, he's the one that taught me how to duck hunt, how to bird hunt, but never into really fishing. And now like, he's as addicted as I am. I taught him how to fly fish.
That's the beauty of it. That's where it comes back around, right? It's like you got interested in something and then you took over that parent role in a way.
Yeah. The only problem is I took over the parent costs too, because now I've got a duck hunting boat. I've got a fucking striper boat. And he's like, oh yeah. So when are we
going that wormhole?
And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just talking to my wife about another, because I want to get a 3-weight fly rod. And I was talking to her about that last night. She's like, how much is that? I'm like, I don't know, like $400 or da, 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 da. And she's like, I don't understand why you need another one. I said, well, why do you need another pair of shoes? Simple as that.
Yep.
And,
that's the only thing I can say to the beauty of getting your wife at least involved at a higher level of the outdoors is you can sort of justify. It's like, why do I need to go spend $2,000 on a shotgun every 5 years? Well, I mean, it's part of it. And so being exposed to it, they kind of understand. Now, I mean, my wife walks into this room and I mean, there's rods going this way. There's rods going that way. There's so much fishing shit, but then, that's all we do all summer. We striper fish with the kids. I go fly fishing and, my daughter wants to learn how to fly fish this year. And it's like, absolutely. She's out there ice fishing with me at 7. And it's like, if I can involve them enough where I still get my time, it allows me to make the purchases a little bit easier. So I think you should get your wife into fly fishing.
Yeah.
Listen, dude, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of the reasons I guide. It's because I can justify being out there because I'm making money. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, I got to go up and scout the day before too. I just haven't fished the water in a little bit. I just want to make sure everything's all good. So it's like when it's like that, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you got a trip, all right, good, have fun, yeah. But it's like, hey, I'm going to fish. It's like, oh, what time to be home? And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why this attitude change?
I gotta work, hon.
Yeah,
I gotta work. Okay.
Yeah.
But you talk about your kids, like I brought my daughter to Montana when she was 1. We just happened to be able to take a trip out there. We had the right money at the time. We were able to do it. Obviously, she didn't get a really, memorable experience at 1, but we're going back this year. And I want to try to go every 2 or 3 years because, like you just said, like I would love them to just be exposed to it so much to the point where it's like something ingrained in them, and maybe they want to go to college out there, which just gives me an excuse to go visit more.
Yeah.
Everything wraps around that, man. Everything revolves around that. So,
well, that's what we used to do trips, and it actually hurt my fishing up here a little bit. Was we used to go down to the Keys. We would go down and admittedly not do a lot of backcountry fly fishing, but really just go down sport fishing, blackfin tuna, sailfish, mahi. But we go down for 2 weeks before kids. And then we did one trip when my wife was pregnant, and then we did one trip when we had our daughter. She was 4 months old, and that was the last time we went. So it's been 7 years since we've been down there, and I'm like, we got to get back down there because the kids really, really need to experience that, and I really miss it. Like,
no, 100%. And my girls are 6 and 4 right now, and they both, like, I didn't take them fishing when they were really little. Like, they come out with me, but I didn't have them fish and stuff. But I mean, they've only caught fish on a fly rod right now, and they've only caught wild brook trout on a fly rod. They haven't caught a stockfish yet. Yeah. And I'm not being snobby or anything like that, but I mean, I kind of hope that they never know what a spin rod is. I mean, they don't right now, but and I don't have a problem with spin fishing though at all. Like, I grew up on it. It's what got me hooked,
Yeah.
Like, no pun intended there, but it's what got me hooked. And the thing I love about Maine too, and it's kind of New England, but it's mostly Maine, is like, you see a guy, he gets out of work, he's got the pickup truck. He's got he's got a couple beers in the back, and he's got a flat rod and a spin rod. He's got his big, hip boots on, and walks down the river and does a little bit of both, and it's like, there's no, like, you don't need all the Sims gear and all the expensive shit. You kind of got that, like, blue collar fly fisherman.
Yeah.
Which you don't see that as much in other parts of the country. And I love that about Maine. I think it's so cool. And I don't know. It's just fun. Like, that's the other thing with stocked fish. Like, I don't mind the opportunity that, like, down here where the water's not great, in the spring, get out of work, go catch some stockies, but then on the weekends, go have some fun, go up to camp. It gives you a good excuse to get up north and experience, the woods and the real part of Maine. So.
Yeah. That's the thing, is it's like, it's down here. I view it as like it's almost like, the preseason games, of fishing. It's like, all right, let's go. We've been ice fishing for 6 months, and then before that we were really striper fishing. So a striper hook set and a trout hook set are not the same thing. Let's not try and yeet this fucking striper or this trout, on the first day of the season. So let's go fine tune the 3-weight, maybe get the 4-weight out, and get back into it, and just catch fish locally. Only be gone, it's like going out to pick up a gallon of milk. I'll be back in 45 minutes, and
that's a lot of the fishing I do around here. Is just like, after work on my way home, I'll put on my flip flops and go wade in a small river for an hour and a half or so, and just scratch that itch. And it makes a big difference with my sanity when I get by the time I get home. You know what I mean? I'm in a much better mood. Sure. And I don't even have to catch fish. Like, one day last year, I left work and I went to a local pond in a kayak, and I caught black crappie on a 3-weight fly rod for like 2 hours straight. And it was just an absolute blast.
Yeah.
And by the time I got home, I was in a good mood, and my wife wasn't mad because I was in a shitty mood, and it just all works out. And there's so many times, and that all started because, just like you said, somebody took me fishing, fly fishing on a pond in northern Maine, and that just flipped a switch. And it's like drinking coffee for the first time and getting that feed rush.
Exactly.
Now you do it every day.
You don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know where I mean, I'm 34 years old now, and I've had, the last 12 years of my life, like, it's like I literally think about fly fishing every single day of the year.
Yeah.
Something with it. And, I'm meeting all these great people. I'm going all these cool places. I'm building a camp in Rangeley. Like, I'm just just surrounding myself with it, because it's awesome. And that's what I love about Maine. And that's a huge reason of why I'm like doing a podcast, and I'm trying to do some conservation work, and not just sit here and complain about it. Like, let's do something about it, because we have these awesome opportunities. And I would love to see more people in Maine be able to, like, make money off of guiding, make money off of having a shop here, make money off of having a diner in a town that, is really good for fishing, like bringing more industry here with it, and we just have these great opportunities, but if we don't take care of them too, they're not going to be there. So,
well, it kind of leads to a point where I wanted to talk to you about too, was like, so we went out to Colorado and went up and fished through the park, through Estes and all the way over to the Western Slope.
Yep.
And going into a fly shop in Colorado where A, they manage fish, B, they have a very sustainable fishery, is a completely different experience than, your first walk into Eldridge. I'll say it just because I love Jim and I think he can take it. But it's like we walked into Front Range Anglers out in Boulder, Colorado, and the guys are like, "Oh, where are you guys headed?" And we, said, "Oh, we're going to drive up through the park. We're going to stop here. We're going to fish these rivers." And he's like, "All right, well, here's some decent spots to hit. Here's 10 flies I suggest for you to go take." And I was like, "That's fucking awesome. Like, that's going to get someone into it right away."
Yeah.
Here's a chance to be successful. Here's some areas to hit. And like talking to Jim for the first time, no offense to Jim, but it's like, "Oh, what do you think?" And he's like, yeah, there's just those flies over there and you can take whatever you want. And it's like, it's very standoffish on the East Coast, especially the Northeast, where even like
we don't have as much water. We don't have as much good fishable water. So they're kind of like,
nobody wants to give
a little
out
bit.
that.
They're not going to give you all their spots. They're not going to give you all stuff because there's not enough spots,
Right.
Yeah. Like you look at, I'm sure you've watched a ton of YouTube videos about it, but like Craig, Montana, which like Craig, Montana is fly fishing. Like that's why it's there.
It's the whole town.
And you compare that, like Rangeley could be that like during the summer if we had the conservation and the sustainable fishery that used to be there. You know what I mean?
Right. But in the summer now it's too warm, and like the fly shop owners sadly have to be like, hey, this isn't a good time to fish there, or there. And they're not going to give you the small stream spots because they don't want too much pressure on them, which I totally agree with that. But it's just sad that, like you're saying, out in Colorado, you have all these, hundreds of miles of river to fish. And here it's like, we have that, but it's not trout. So we got to change people's mindsets on those places we can't, like you're not reviving Lisbon, Maine to like a trout fishery. You just, it's not going to happen.
And that's like that spot is, that area is like on my list of places I want to go this summer to catch smallmouth.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. All of the Andrew isn't, like you're on the Androscoggin River, you're floating down, or you're on the Kennebec, you're floating down, and like you're not gonna see anybody all day. You're out there kind of on your own, and it's just cool. And I just wish we did a better job of promoting it. And I think people like us need to take it in their own hands and like make cool content about it, and like show people what it is. Because you can talk about it, but listen, you're floating down a river in the sun, drinking beers, hammering these really hard fighting fish on a 5-weight fly rod, or 6-weight fly rod. And I just don't know how it gets really better than that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not down for catching trout that time of year and potentially killing them. So it's like, to me, that's the best option. And it's also just a shit ton of fun anyway. So.
Well, and I think it's too, like, that's the one time that I do want to have, like, most of the times if I'm targeting wild trout, I'm not bringing beers with me. It's not about sitting on the river, drinking beers, having fun. I am fucking locked in to go catch the trout I want. So it's like, it's almost like a vacation. Bass fishing, and same thing with striper fishing. Even if we're striper fishing on a fly rod, like we know the stripers are there. Like, fish for a little bit, take a break, crack some beers, sit on the boat, listen to music, hang out. Like, I don't know.
Well,
like
the experience is the important part. Catching the fish is really not, if you think about it, right? It's like you remember experiences. Obviously, you remember fish, but you also just remember the experiences you have and the places you get to go and stuff you do. So it's like, I'll sit there for an hour on the side of the river, just eat a sandwich, hang out, watch the river, watch bugs, and just be a part of it. I don't have to have my fly in the river all day long. You know what I mean? Like you find this level of enjoyment after you fish enough, you kind of get it out of your system and you just start to appreciate the resource and stuff. And I had a guide tell me my first year guiding, he'd been guiding for a while, and I ran him on the river, and he was like, he told me, he said, don't bring people here who you don't think are going to appreciate the river. So like it had nothing to do with catching fish. And I didn't know what he was talking about at the time, but I do now. And it's crazy, but I'm like selective when I guide. Like I won't, Like if you call me and you're annoying me in the first minute, I don't want to spend a day with you for any amount of money. And I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah.
If all you do is talk about all the big fish you've caught in Montana and Labrador and New Zealand and this and that, and like, I don't know if I want to take you either, because you're just all about catching a big fish. You're not there for the experience and really, appreciating where you are and what you're doing, and that like I've taken those people out too, and it's like they expect you to catch fish for them and literally do it for them. And it's like, well, you're holding the rod and you're talking to me about fish that you caught, down in Tennessee while there's a fish biting on your line right over there, there. You're looking at me, look at the fish, and, oh, the fishing's not very good here. I'm like, well, you've missed about 20 today, so do what you want. I don't know if the fish in Tennessee do. I don't know if they jump on your line or something, but apparently I'm not doing a good enough job.
What's a typical day of fishing? Like, say I buy a day trip smallmouth bass fishing with you. What is it like? How do you?
So I try to be like a little bit more and I may be able to do this because I'm not a full-time guide. Like if it was like every day I was hammering guide trips, like, you're tired because you're up 2 hours before you meet people and you're home an hour and a half after you get off the river, and then you're getting ready for the next day. Like it can get exhausting when you have multiple days in a row, and some people do it for 4 weeks straight sometimes, and I get that. But with me, what I try to do with people is like, I don't just set it to like, all right, we're getting on at 8 and we're get off at 4. You know what I mean? Like if you want to fish in the dark, like I don't care. I'm not going to like charge you extra pennies for fishing for 2 more hours or whatever. Like it doesn't matter to me. I get so like passionate and like engulfed in the guiding experience when I'm out there that like I'm just having fun. And for me, like I don't want to go home. I don't want to call it a day. And I get myself into trouble that way sometimes because I'm super tired later or pissed off the wife or whatever for getting home 3 hours later than I said I would. But like I would take people. It's a cool part about building my camp. Like I'd love to take people out, do a full day trip, which most guides, they spend like 8 hours in the water. But I mean, I'd love to get you over on the river at like 5:30 in the morning and let's fish till like 9:30 or 10, and then go back to the camp, hang out, play some cribbage.
Yeah.
Take a nap, or go fish the pond next to the camp or whatever for a little bit. And then let's go back out, let's do an early dinner and go back out from 5 to 9. So like, to me, it's not like, oh, we're just going there from 8 to 4 because this is good hours. You get to sleep, you get home for dinner, whatever. Like if people want that choice, I'm down for that every single time. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if I'm on 3 hours of sleep after. Like that to me is really cool. So I'm not just like a run of the mill, like let's just do this because it's convenient. Like let's go out there when the fishing's really going to be very good, and let's get a really cool experience, so
absolutely.
That's how I fish. Like that's when I fish, that's how I fish. Like when I go to the West Branch in the summer, I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning fishing until like 9 o'clock. Then I'll go like take a 2-hour snooze in the middle of the day. I'll do a dinner at like 4 and then be back on the water till like 10, so I guide like I fish because fishing is better at low light hours. Like it just is for every species, really. So
there is nothing worse than getting together with buddies and it's like, all right, we're planning a hunting trip, and it's like, all right, we're gonna go hunt. It's like, all right, well, I got to be back at 10:30 at the boat ramp. Is that all right?
No,
dude. You said we're going hunting on Saturday. That means Saturday is we're hunting. Now, whether that means we're getting in the boat, we're going to go hunt here until 9, and then we're going to go grab breakfast somewhere and go take the boat somewhere else, and then we're going to go hunt more. And it's like, look, my wife has stopped asking when I get home from anything at this point in my life, where it's just like, hey, I'm going fishing. Okay, sounds good. If the fishing's great, I am getting better about trying to check in, just because sanity with a 7 and a 5-year-old is at a premium. So it's it's trying to get in, but it's like, that's one of the things that kills me when it's like, hey, can we go out fishing? And it's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, I'll be done. I'll be ready to go by like 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, why are we going then? Like I plan to be on the river or the pond or wherever at 5:30.
Yep.
Like, and I plan to be done probably having lunch at 10. Like, if you want to meet for lunch and have beers at lunch, sounds good, dude. But
yeah, I mean, so like that's how I want to guide people though. Like and if listen, if you want, like, it's whatever you want. If you want an 8 to 4 day and you want to sleep in and you want to just go fish and then you want to go back and have early dinner, okay, cool. Like I'm good with that. But if you also want to be hardcore, you want to fish in the night, I don't care. Like whatever you want to do, I'm down for that. And I don't charge more for that. I don't expect more. And I just want you to have truly the best experience for whatever it is you're looking for, you know.
Yeah.
And
don't bitch when you're not getting the big bites that you should be getting at 6 o'clock.
no, but I'll tell people that too. Like I'm very realistic, you know. It's like, you know, it's the middle of the day. Like there's a lull, you know. The fishing isn't always good. It's not like you're there for 8 hours and it's just like fish, especially with trout. I mean, in the places I go, they see a lot of flies and they see a lot of pressure, and it's like, you know, it's not going to be lights out all day long, but we can make it more that way if we, you know, go out certain hours or whatever. So I'm just open like that. Like I'm open to doing all these different kind of things and trying stuff. And because I want people to have the best experience possible. It's, you know, it's funny you talk about like hunting. Like I have hunting buddies. I like to track deer. I like to go up north and track. Like when the snow comes, I want to get on track and I just want to go all day.
Yeah.
I think I have ADD, but I'm not diagnosed, but I can't sit all day. Like it drives me nuts. I can only take so many squirrels that sound like a giant buck, you know? And like when I go hunting, I'm up early and I want to get out in the woods before, you know, I want to get on the roads before the sun comes up so I can try to cut a track and I can maximize my time out there. But then I got buddies who just want to get hammered and they like wake up at 10 o'clock and want to go hunting, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just not for that. It's not what I want to do, you know? So
so you should try duck hunting because it's the perfect meld of like, I don't deer hunt, never have, never probably will. The only thing I would consider is bow hunting because it's more of an art. It's like sort of a kind to like fly fishing in the hunting world.
Yep.
But like, and that's why I like duck hunting is you're trying to completely fool a wild animal to thinking that A, its friends are here and B, it's safe. And it's like to pull that off, you've now beat Mother Nature at its own game.
Yeah.
And I can sit there, we can shoot the shit just like this all fucking morning. Don't have to be quiet. I can have Red Bull. I can have chew. I can have cigars. I can have fucking powdered donuts.
Yep.
Like you get bored, get up, walk around. I don't fucking care. You want to get out of the boat, go for a walk. See ya. Like my old man does it all the time. Fucking he's gone for 2 hours. All right, see you later. Good luck. Like, and that's why I love duck hunting. And I mean, it's just you can change spots every day. It's not like there's a guy there's 600 acres around me. One's a farm, one is someone else's land, but they allow people to hunt it. I see the same truck every time of day, every fucking day. And I'm like, you're going out and sitting in the same spot, just hoping for something to happen. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? I mean, unless you're trying to get away from your family, which maybe, but
avoiding their wife.
Yeah, that's not how I live. I'm like, if I don't shoot ducks one day, I normally come home angry and I drop the boat off and I go, I'm going to find birds for tomorrow. It's like, that's my fault. Like, I mean, it's the same thing with fishing. It's like, if you don't have a good day somewhere, you're not just going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to go back there tomorrow and do the same fucking thing. It's like, no, I'm going to A, figure out what I did today that wasn't successful, B, figure out where I can be successful and go execute that. Like, I don't know.
I've been sitting in a deer stand hunting deer and get a text from him with a 6-point buck swimming in the water 5 feet from his duck blind. I'm like, shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot to mention my buddy who wakes up at 10 o'clock, goes shoots a deer at 10:45, like you know, half drunk. And I'm like, of course you can.
The first deer I ever shot, I left work at 4 o'clock on a Saturday. It was like that weekend before the time change where it was like dark, where it was you could hunt until 5 o'clock. So I got there at 4:20. I got out of my truck. I walked 5 feet. I shot the deer. And then at like 4:25, the deer was dead. Yeah. And it was in the back of my truck. So
that's called the shit luck factor.
Exactly.
Something you also need a lot of the time. But for me, it's the experience being out there, you know, like and it's so cool. Like, look at the three of us telling stories. He likes to sit for deer. I like to track deer. You don't even like the deer hunt, but you like to duck hunt, right? Like, we all have our thing that we like to do. And that's what I mean about the experience. Like, for me, when I track, I walk 8 to 10 miles in the snow. I don't know where the hell I am. I'm 4 miles from my truck. And I love that. I love that like experience of having to like find myself to get out of the woods. You know what I mean? Like, I like using my compass to figure out how to get back and stuff. It's your senses are heightened, right? And you feel like you just feel a little bit more alive sometimes you do stuff like that.
I got a funny story. So last year, so actually the past year, I've had 3 major hip surgeries.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, I had 2 replacements, and then the second replacement, I got a really bad staph infection, so they had to redo it. So I had 2 days to deer hunt this year before my second hip replacement. So I went out deer hunting, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go walk. I'm gonna get pretty far in to a spot that I've never really hunted before, but I've always seen trucks parked there, and there was trails, and it was the middle of the week. So I said, screw it. And I start walking, and I trip and fall. And I'm like, I'm still getting my legs underneath me, like learning how to walk with these new legs. I'm like, if I die out here, my wife is she's gonna kill me because. So I had to like army crawl to a tree, and somehow I got turned around, and I had to cross a brook, and I'm like, this is it. She's never gonna let me out of the house again. But it was an awesome experience, and I was glad I didn't see any deer, but it was a blast.
Yeah, I've been there, and dude, you can walk 50 feet off the road, a few times, and you're like, shit, which way's out? You know, like that's a real thing. And I don't know, maybe it's weird, but I just like that experience of getting out almost more than like tracking and hunting deer. It's just it's cool. I don't know. It just makes you feel a little bit more alive, and life's so cookie cutterish sometimes. You know, you drive the same way to work, you do this, you do that. It's like, it's cool to kind of get out in nature and just figure things out. And
the first time I went fly fishing with I call him my grandfather, but he's actually my boss.
Yeah,
was my boss. He grew up in northern Maine, and we were out in Coldstream country, just outside of Jackman. And he brought me to this pond, and he parked the truck off the side of the dirt road, and he's like, all right, now we walk. So we're walking. I'm like, he could kill me. Nobody would ever know.
That's nice.
And then all of a sudden we just like show up at this pond where he's got a canoe tied to a tree.
Yep.
And we load the canoe in the water. We paddle across this pond, get out of the canoe, drag it through the woods like another 1,000 yards. And he's like, now this is the pond we're going to fish on. And I caught my first rainbow trout on a fly. And like I said, it was a switch, but I had no idea where I was. And he told me before we left the truck, he's like, there's a hide key underneath the bumper. If something happens to me, you got to be able to get back out to the truck to get back to the campsite. And he's telling me this. I'm like, I don't even know how we got here. I'm screwed.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you weren't paying attention when we took that left and that right and that left and that left and that left. Yeah, it's, getting back to what you guys wanted to talk to me about. It's like, we all have these things that we love, and we unfortunately need like more than ever to speak up about things and have like push conservation, because right now fishing is threatened, right? Like, it's just so many things being thrown at it. Well, pretty soon it's going to be deer hunting and duck hunting, you know what I mean? All that stuff. And it's like, you gotta step up and at least say something, because just sitting back and letting it happen isn't good. And unfortunately, we still live in a world where people don't do what's best. They do what's best for money. They don't do what's best for, the earth or people. And it's, I know you guys are a very liberal podcast here. I grew up with a dad who wears the red tie. So I don't like politics very much. I just think it's a bunch of high school kids arguing is what it seems like. And whoever's, got more people in, they're more braggy and make more rules or whatever. But I hate that people like get pigeonholed when it comes to outdoor things as like, oh yeah, you're a Democrat or you're liberal, blah, 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 stuff. Like, why can't I want to keep the money in my paycheck and love the outdoors for what it is.
Exactly.
And be there. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's why I'm like, the politics stuff's bullshit. Like, if you love the earth, you're a liberal. If you love money, you're a Republican. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Sense.
Well, it's
So
one of the
we
things
gotta fight things though. And what happens is sometimes politics gets way too involved and money gets way too involved. And I'm so tired of having leaders in our state, cities, country that are doing things just for power and money. And they're not doing things because it's what's right. I mean, all day long, your brain makes decisions. You have two decisions you can make with everything you do, right? You can go right or you can go left. You can do the right thing, you can do the wrong thing. Most of the time, you should be doing the right thing and things will be better. And sometimes you have to do the wrong thing to protect something else, but not money. Like, too much stuff's done for money. You know, it's like, I just feel bad. Those biologists didn't get that job to like sit here and think about how much money they can make, how many fish they can raise in a tank. You know what I mean? They didn't get into it because of that.
Somebody made the correlation to me, and it really changed my kind of view. It didn't change my view on politics. I still hate all politics, but it's really, politics are city versus country. Now it's divided into liberal versus Republican, but really, if you go sit and talk to the people in the country, they all, for the most part, want the same fucking thing. Leave me the fuck alone and let me have my outdoors and let me have money. Sounds good. People in the cities are the ones that, want all the progressive change and take care of everybody. And, that's fine. And I think people do need handouts, but also let's protect nature's resources that you sometimes like to go out and take Instagram pictures at. Like,
yeah,
we happen to live out here. And so why don't you let us be the expert? Just because you got elected, you're not the expert. Like, I don't know.
And country people want to see people taken care of too, who can't take care of themselves or having issues. Exactly. So they're on hard times. Like, they want to see that as well, but I'd rather handle that through community. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say, like most of the time we'll take care of each other. Like,
yeah.
Your neighbor, I'm the way I am. Like, my neighbor calls me today and says, "Hey, I need this tool." Yeah, I got it. Or, "Hey, I need a hand moving." Yeah, no problem. Whereas like, money doesn't solve that problem.
No, and the sad part is cities used to be like that in this country, where you had small communities within the cities and people took care of each other. And now you just have all these people that are around you who you don't know. They live 20 feet from you and you don't interact with them at all.
Yeah.
And that can happen in the country too, because you can go in the country and just be a hermit and do what you want. And you can be in a city and be a hermit and do what you want. But I just think that we're going on a huge rabbit hole here, guys, but you can, like, we need to get back to community in our state. Like, start there, start in our state and get back to community, buying stuff locally, helping people out locally instead of just worrying about all this other shit that just happens across the country and across the world. Like, just take care of your community first. I mean, I live in Saco. I tell my wife this all the time. I'm like, besides the people on our street, I don't know anybody in this town.
Yeah.
I don't have like any like reason to, and they don't have any reason to interact with me. And besides going to like, the T-ball games on Saturdays and awkwardly talking to some parents you don't really know, it's like, I don't interact with anybody. Like, I want to live in a small town. I want to live in a place like Rangeley because I want to know everyone who's around me, and I want to be able to help out, and I want them to be able to help me out when I need it. And I want to be able to just kind of like feel part of a community and support that. I don't feel that in cities. Like, that's my huge argument to not wanting to live here and stuff, and
I don't feel that in the small town I grew up in now. Like,
sad.
I grew up in a small town in Elliott, Maine, and I still work there. And it's like, you have people coming into the shop that I like. When I first started working at my job, I was 16 years old, and I knew everybody's name that came through the door. It was just that small town business. And now we still have those people, but it's like, I get all these people coming from out of state that are kind of assholes. And I hate it. And the town is more, seems like the town and the state are more interested in setting up places for people to grow weed than they are to get outside and do other stuff.
It's true.
It's
true.
I mean?
And that comes money. That comes down from money, right?
Yep.
It's like,
the biggest thing that I have a problem with seeing is like, you moved here for a reason.
Yeah.
Respect the reason you moved here. Like you moved here because Maine was wild and beautiful, and you didn't have all these neighbors, and you could, kind of you can live your life however the fuck you want. It's a pretty liberal state in that fact of like, you can do whatever the fuck you want for all we really care. You marry whoever you want, smoke whatever you want, and fucking on we go.
But don't bother me about what I want to do.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And don't fuck up what was here when you came here. What drew you here? And that's my bit. Like, because York is a very weird town in my view, because I grew my family's been in this area for fucking ever, literally 1500s, and it's like, so there's like that part of town where it's like the old families that we all still know each other and interact, and then there's all these new people that now I'm being forced to meet because of my children, but otherwise I would have no fucking idea these people exist. And it's like, I'm pretty fortunate. Like, I know 4 of my neighbors here. I only have 5, so, but I only know first names on half of them. And like, one of my best friends now lives 4 doors down. I didn't meet him for 3 years that we moved in the house, because we just didn't leave the house, because whatever reasons you want to have, it's like, having small kids, it affects your social life, and you're not going out. But you also don't have that anymore with social media, which social media can be great, and it can also be the devil. And it's like, finding the good parts of that is, and getting people involved is much more difficult now. Into
like, if I never had taken that fly class at Eldridge, I would have never known who you were, that type of thing. And so now it's just created.
But that's a community thing right there, right? Like, I volunteer my time there. You take a class because you want to learn, and in turn, like, Jim throws me some business sometimes, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's 3 people connecting right there through something that's, authentic and real. It's not forced. It's not, it's something, it's real. It feels good. I like being part of that stuff. I want to be part of that stuff more.
Yeah.
I know we've been going for a while here, but like, just to touch on that class real quick, as far as like my experience goes, because never really got a chance to talk about it. Like, that was, and I've never taken a fly tying class, but like, I would take that class every year just because of, I'm sure there'd be something more I would pick up. You know what I mean? And I think the coolest part for me about that class was seeing those 2 young kids that were in the class that were like 13 or 14 years old,
killing it,
that were just into fly fishing. And it's like, all right, there's a little hope, which then in turn drive me to be like, let's make it better for them when they're our age. You know what I mean? We're both 34 years old. Imagine, like, we all had that instance where somebody brought us outside and said, let's go fishing. You know what I mean? That kid Cooper or whatever's, I think,
he's going to be a stud. I mean, think about it. His grandfather is dropping him off on a Sunday morning to go take a fly tying class. He's 13. Like, every other 13-year-old is in bed, or they're getting forced to go to church with their parents and refusing, or they're playing video games and sitting on their phone or whatever, and he is like interested in taking a fly tying class with a bunch of people who are literally ages 30 to 90, and it's like,
and he's going to go to Montana this summer and forget, like, I want to be friends with him. Like, that's
right. Yeah. You're like, you want to fish together? I mean, he's going to be a stud just because of the people are raising him. In my mind, they're raising him right. They're raising him well.
I told my wife, she's like, did you meet anybody in the class? I was like, yeah, this kid Cooper, he invited me to his birthday party next week, which I would totally go to if he did. But it was just, that was like the coolest part of that class for me, was seeing that. And
my only issue with the class is that, it's a beginner class.
Yeah.
I literally, like, there's people in that class who have been coming there for 3 years or 4 years, however long you've been doing it.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back. And I'm kind of like, you should be taking another class. Like,
you're
not a beginner if you've taken this a bunch of times. So what's hard for me, like, as an instructor in that class, is I have some people who can't even put the thread on the hook. And then I have some people that are like done with the fly. They just need to watch me do it. So like, I think, like I told you, like, I want to do like an intermediate class too, for people like you. Like, you don't need beginner class. Like, you have enough skills to be able to move on and try something a little faster. You don't need to
Yeah.
wait for, I think that would be cool.
My wife did not like me taking it. Like at first she was like, $40, couple Sundays, sweet. And now I'm like, I got to go to the fly shop
Yeah,
because
$4,000 later in
because
materials.
I need to buy like 4 calf's tails because they're all different colors and, and stuff like that. But and then it comes back to the community thing. Like after the first class, I went on to a website and I like loaded up my cart with a bunch of different stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy this from Eldridge because they put on the class and I just feel like I should get it from them. And I did. And, I'll probably buy some stuff online here and there, but something about going into the fly shop and shooting the shit with Jim and getting it there is a cool experience and a good feeling.
Yeah. And so thinking about that, right? Like if we don't spend our money in places like that, that place isn't going to be there for long. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're just giving money to somebody in another part of the country or even in another part of the world because something's a little cheaper, right? Or because it's just convenient for you to sit in your house and order it instead of driving down the shop, right? But like if that doesn't happen, then that shop doesn't exist. Then you and I don't meet, right? And we don't have that experience. And I don't get to inspire one person, or I don't get to be inspired. Like I'm inspired by those little kids showing up there every Sunday. It's so cool to me, right? It's like I'll keep doing that class for years and years for years because people like seem like they're getting a genuine takeaway from it. You know what I mean? And
like, there was one more, like, not to get more like the second class, my dad had passed away. And
I thought I saw something on Facebook and I didn't want to bring it up to you.
And I'm like,
and whatnot. And so, but I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to hear that.
I appreciate that. But like I told my wife that, and she agreed. I was like, I got to go to this class because I got to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And I just felt like if Cooper's going to be there, I'm going to be there.
Right.
and
Right.
it was awesome. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you doing that. And I hope maybe they'll do an intermediate class next year, because like I went on a Saturday afternoon to pick up some material when one of the more advanced classes was getting out and they were talking about some of the shit they were tying to that. I was like, it was like a junior high kid walking into a high school for the first time. I'm like, those dudes are just out of this world.
You should next year, you should take the class with Cooper's uncle.
Yeah.
His name's Tom Gagnon. He comes back from Minnesota every year to see family because he grew up in I think Elliott.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Or what are some other towns? It's like near Berwick. Elliott's near Berwick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's South Berwick, Alfred.
Jackton down there somewhere too.
Yep. Yeah. I
Okay,
think
maybe
Cooper said Alfred. I think that's where he's.
Oh, it is Alfred. Yeah, you're right. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, he comes back to see his family every year. He's a guy who guides, 150 days a year. And then as soon as he's done with fishing season, he gets right into duck hunting and other like pigeon hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's like his true passion, is doing those things. So, I mean, it's cool that he comes home. He has 5 days to see his family a year, and he spends 2 of those days doing like a legit 8-hour class where he preps all the materials for you and everything's just ready to go. And he shows you how to tie like 10 really great flies. So
Yeah.
that class, if you're like not a beginner, that's a great value, and it fills up quickly every year for a reason, because it's really awesome, so.
Yeah. I got to talk to him a little bit when I was there at the shop because he was just getting done teaching, and he's a cool dude. You fish with him in Montana, right?
Yeah. I only know him from like going down the shop, and they recommended when I went out there to go fish with him. And honestly, he took my dad and myself out, and my dad is a god awful fly fisherman. So we put him in the front, and he caught like 20 fish. I mean, it was insane. Tom was just so good at what he does. And, he was just funny, made the day a fun time, like made fun of us a lot, which is great. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Made fun of, when you're not doing something well. And it was just really cool. And I was like, I want to be involved with this shop. I want to be involved with this place. Like, they're pumping out quality people, and quality experiences. And I don't know, you're probably like, you feel the same way, like you just want to be a part of it, right? Like it's just something that interests you and you're like, this seems really cool, it gets you excited.
Just want to go in there and drink coffee with Jim and pick his brain, because it, like,
I know they do need like a little, I mean, it would probably be filled with a bunch of us degenerate people, but like they should just take over the little chocolate shop next door and just make it like a little fly fishing bar, put devices up, and then just have like 3 beers on tap, and we can all just sit over there and fucking be grumpy old
That's
men.
how it started. It was like the lumber shop. They had like a little, it started that way. Like Scott Eldredge, the owner, he would just sit there and like talk fly fishing with people all day. And then he got a little vice going, tying some flies. Then he started selling some flies, and then he totally branched off and did a whole, fly shop there or whatever. But I just always feel bad because Jim texts me at like 9 or 9:30 at night. And he's like, oh, just leaving the shop, blah, 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 this. And I'm like, damn it, I talked to you for 2 hours today. You could have gone home 2 hours earlier.
Yeah.
You're like an asshole. Like, how many people are talking to you all day and you can't get any work done?
I've never been into that shop where he wasn't there. So like that's crazy. Like,
yeah, I think he's not there usually on like Saturdays or something. It's like his only job. He makes that shop. And I'm like, what is that shop with? He, retires, leaves or whatever. And I don't know. It's hard to find someone to do the amount of work he does with the amount of knowledge that he has, and keep that place afloat. Cause I mean, they're not rolling in it, it's not.
It's definitely not a money making, because I mean, same thing. Eldredge is like Adam, which is one of Scott's sons, was my class. And it's like that's more of a passion business than it is. And I mean, look at all the small shops that have closed over the years. Like you said, if you're not shopping at those small shops, what do we have left in the state for fly shops? Like dedicated fly shops, like LL Bean. It's sort of gone the way of Kittery Trading Post. Honestly, it's not there for the true outdoorsman anymore. It is what it is. And it's like, so you've got Eldredge down here in southern Maine. You've got the guys up in Wyndham, Trident, but I mean, he's an online business. He's
just online. He has to have a physical shop to be able to carry all those things that he carries and show that he has a shop. But that's not really a true fly shop. It's just more of a holding place for his online business. So
and it's you get up north, and you can get into a handful of shops in the entire state, really. And it's like, you think about, like, you go down to the Farmington, and it's like that is it the Farmington River Fly Shop? I forget the name of that shop down there. There's a shop right on the Farmington, and it's fucking massive. And it's like, that's, everyone goes there, and I feel like Eldredge is that to the state, where it's great location, get right off 95, avoid the York toll, and go shoot the shot.
And they have a great selection there of fly tying, probably the best in the state in terms of quantity of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you go in there and you spend $250 on a nymph fly that you could buy online for 60 cents, like, you're not only supporting the shop, you're also supporting some
local
young kid that's a local tire who's making maybe $1.25 off that fly or something, you know what I mean? And he's going to tie up a dozen of those to make $16 an hour, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're supporting not just a shop, you're supporting somebody in your community, most likely, which is really cool.
The only thing I wish they would do, there's 2 things I want to see Eldredge do. Put out SPF sun shirts, for fuck's sakes. No one wants a fucking cotton long sleeve fucking Eldredge Brothers striper fucking, or brook trout, or fucking any fish. Put out an SPF sun shirt, get on fucking board. It's what we've all worn for every fucking day we've ever been fishing in the last 10 years. It drives me fucking nuts. But then, like, the intermediate gear, like, I would love to see them get, like, Maine Fly Company, their rods. I sort of have a personal connection with their board members. It's his get someone in there where you are mid-range, because you go in there and it's like, okay, we've got 4 Reddington packs here that are packed away, or you can step up here to some of the greatest rods, and they are fantastic. I love the quality, but it's like, I think you're losing a little bit of people that walk in that shop and get a little sticker shock when they're like, oh, this is a nice rod. Let me pick it up. It feels awesome. And then you turn it over and it's a Sage for $8.99. And it's like, I think they're kind of doing a disservice where like, yeah, grab a Maine company, grab Maine Fly Company and say, hey, put in, one of each of your rods and let's see how it goes. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I know what you're saying. They could have more, stuff that's priced for just an affordable angler. You know what I mean? Because what's going to happen is like, they're not going to get that business from people who can't spend $600 on the fly rod. Right.
Right.
And
I'm not buying a
this
rod.
is going to go somewhere else, but maybe they would have spent $350 buying it from your shop, but instead they go, buy it for $350 from Maine Fly Company or from, a smaller company that does that, and so it's, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's something that definitely could be done. And I think a lot of what's in there are things that like Jim is just like super passionate about. And
exactly.
He's also like really like, this is very good quality stuff, but sometimes you got to sacrifice quality a little bit if you're gonna help people, get what they want and get what they need. So.
Oh, and especially with like, it's one of the things I think Trident does a really good job with like their rod return or their rod trade in stuff. Like I'd love to see. You don't see it much in the outdoors world, but like the ski world, you see it all the time. And skiing's predominantly white, expensive, upper middle class sport where it's like, let's do a tent sale. Like, let's go in, trade in stuff, swap stuff. Like, I would love to see, like, you imagine the community that you could have at Eldridge if you opened up that whole parking lot like they do for when they do their expo, but let's do that for a swap and sell event. Like, how many fucking rods do I have sitting here that I would go like, hey, if I can get, if I can pass this on to someone that I know wants to fish it.
Yep.
And then get whatever, a $50 credit, dude, I do that 10 times out of 10.
You take that money and go upgrade a rod to something else.
Exactly. But not only that, it's a networking event. Like I've missed that fucking Fly Rod Expo. Like I love going to that,
I think that'll come back next year. I mean,
like 6 miles down the road from me. So
I can't believe they didn't do it this year, but with COVID stuff still just the way it is. And honestly, they've done a lot of shows this year and they've been really poorly attended anyway. Because you still have so many people on edge about it. And like they're doing the Western Maine one up at Gould Academy on the 26th. And I mean, I'm glad they're holding it. I think it's great. It's good to get people back together. Let's get back to normal, and
Augusta's doing theirs.
Yeah, they're doing the Sam show, right? And like I think stuff sadly is still going to be poorly attended this year, but it's a step back into what we need other than just, not do like I would have liked to see him try, you know what I mean? I would like to see him try the expo. And so what if you don't get a banner day, but it's something. So,
well, and like, I mean, who was it? Oh, it was Maine Fly Company that put on their expo last year, like on a Saturday in the middle of striper season. And they put on a striper expo. I'm like, boy, what are you doing? Like, why would you like hold this in May? Like, I mean,
well, they did it.
Oh, they're doing that again in July this year, by the way. I'm on the board. I'm on the board for it.
Are you?
Yeah, we just literally had a meeting about it last night. I don't know why the time of year, but I will say this: they're doing the striper tournament on Friday now and Saturday, so you have like 2 days to do it. So, yeah, I know what you're saying though. It's taking up a day of striper fishing for you when you want to also be there at the event. So.
Well, and especially where it's like it's up, up in Scarborough, place in Bath. I don't fish up there. Like, am I going to trailer my boat all the way up there?
Right. Or like seeing it down here, like Thompson's Point.
Yeah.
Like
so, or like Biddeford Pool, or anywhere in Scarborough. Like, I don't know. There's some. It was interesting to see, but I mean, I just give Toby shit. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I think they're going to be. I think that's going to be better attended this year too, which is pretty cool. And they have some great new vendors coming in. Like I think Allagash Brewing is going to be there potentially, which is pretty cool. So,
they should be
good feedback though. I can give them that feedback of we should change the date, and I'd almost like to see it in August in some ways too, just because fishing kind of does slow down a lot.
Get people on the water.
I wouldn't do it in June at all. No one's gonna come. Fishing's great everywhere. I wouldn't do it in September and October because people want to be out fishing, and I wouldn't do it really in May. Like I probably would choose later July and August just because everything really starts to slow a little bit, even striper fishing. So
Yeah.
but I think it's cool that they're doing it though, you know, and
I do too. I think that's what it's going to take. Like you said, like trout unlimited. I think it's going to take more grassroots to get anything done around here, and like to get, you know, that community is not going to come from the state saying, oh, we should go smallmouth fishing. That community is going to go from local events. And that's one of the things where like I love going to fly fishing shows. The fly fishing expo down in Mass, when they used to hold that was like, I dragged my 2-year-old daughter to that. Like my wife was like, this is going to be miserable for you. I was like, I don't care. I'll fucking carry her this whole time. And
yeah,
you know, it's something that gets her out there and gets us out there and go meet people. And
yeah, I'm going to the one in Augusta. I'm kind of looking forward to that.
My buddy's little boy is doing like, he has like a fly tying booth, and he's like 7.
That's awesome.
He's gonna be up there, and I'm gonna try to get up to that one. I've never been to that one, but I want to go support them and just check it out anyway. So
I'm just going because it's on a Sunday, so it's easy.
Yeah. It's just something to do and kind of kick the season off, and it's great. But I'm just to come full circle back to things. I have hope that I think social media is actually a really good tool right now for spreading conservation stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And like how many kids and adults have been reamed out for how they're like handling fish on Facebook? Like you don't even see it anymore because people have seen how badly berated someone gets with comments that they.
Yeah, I'm afraid, like, even, and I handle fish appropriately, I like to think, but like I'm even afraid of posting
You want to get ripped.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to post a picture and be like, have some dude be like, why are you holding
way to kill that fucking fish, asshole?
Yeah. And then you're like, what? I wasn't doing anything wrong. But here's the thing though, you can post anything online and you're gonna get 49 likes, and you're gonna get one person who's like, oh, that's nothing. There's a negative in there. So I don't post that much unless if it's just like conservation stuff or like teaching stuff these days. I don't like, there's some guides out there, they post a picture every single day that they guide and every client and a fish and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's like a look at me factor too, though, you know, and I don't care about all that.
Like
so.
I got a buddy that runs a guide service out of Wells. He's striper fishes, and he'll entertain fly fishing, but I mean, he's primarily bait fishing.
Yeah.
And he's running charters out of Wells. He's now up to 2 boats running them. And, you know, but like talking to him about it, he's like, I don't want to do this. He's like, but honestly, to get that clientele to come in and make sure I'm booked, he's like, I got to have a social media presence. He's like, so my wife does it for me. And I'm like, oh, good for you. And I think like guys like you, and, you know, where you're established and you have your comfort zone of where you want to fish, like you've got your either A, established clients, or B, guys are looking for someone like you, and or you're getting recs from a shop like Eldridge, where it's like, hey, I think, you know, you and Aaron be a great fit. I suggest you go fish with him. You know, here you go. And I think that's a much better way to handle it than posting every fish that you caught for the day. Like I do the same thing with duck hunting. I'm terrible at taking pictures when I'm hunting because I don't want to be on my phone unless it's slow as fuck and I'm bored. Then I'll get on.
That's not why you're out there though. You know what I mean?
Like, and same thing with like fishing. Like I've been sort of inspired by Joe Holland to like try and document like ice fishing, mainly because I'm not as passionate about like the ice fishing process. And frankly, you have a lot more time if you're just sitting there fucking fishing with a trap to shoot the shit and explain some stuff. But like one of the reasons I've started doing it is mainly for education of like, hey, this is how we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. This is how, and like, that's the portion I think that social media really needs to be leveraged in. Like, you know, we started out talking about, we started talking about with, you know, you work in education, how much you've learned with technology. Like, let's leverage everyone's use of that and say, okay, instead of saying, hey, retard, nice job handling the fish, it's like, this is my video of proper fish handling, and move on. Like if it's if you're going to sit there and comment hate on someone's post about how they handle a fish, did you make a post showing how you're supposed to do it.
Yep.
Because if you didn't, then you're not fucking helping anybody here. So it's
Right.
like, you can be an asshole all you want, and that's your right. But like, if you want to grow the sport, grow it educationally, and put out that video of how this is how we properly release fish. This is how we properly, we bend all our hooks on our charters because you should be a good enough fisherman to be able to keep a fish tight and land it. And if you don't, that fish goes away unharmed. And that's one of the things, like, only reason that I still have social media, really.
Well, man,
you said you feel you got to keep up, with
Yeah.
other people. And I see people getting into social media who have established guide businesses because maybe they're losing a little bit of business or whatever. And they feel like you said, it's like old guy doesn't want to do that, or young guy or whoever, just if they're not really a social media person. But it's kind of the world we're in now, and we gotta do good by it though, and I think educating people is awesome. I think it's better than like everybody just like, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at my fish. Look at this big fish I caught. It's big fish I caught. I posted it. It's getting kind of old, and I'd like to just see more feel good stuff where people are posting education stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of where I'm at, but
so that's where, like, this summer, actually starting a good friend of mine, his father passed away and he was a lobsterman. And so he approached me and he goes, hey, I want to still run the boat. He's like, I know you love fishing. Would you be interested? And I was like, I would, but I don't want to lose my passion for fishing. I was like, that's something near and dear to me. That's what I do to get away from everything else. I was like, what we can do, let's do educational lobster tours. Let's go teach people about lobsters, why it's important to harvest what we harvest in this state, why there's such strict regulations. Let's, pull traps, teach people about it. And he's like, that's a really good idea. He's like, I thought you'd want to go like striper fish and maybe outfit the boat to go tuna fish. I'm like, dude, that's what I do for my, like, I respect the shit out of anyone that wants to guide, because I'm deathly afraid of doing it, because I don't want to lose my passion, because I don't want to have that guy on the boat that's like, oh, I caught way bigger fish somewhere else. It's like, oh, motherfucker, get off the boat then. I don't give a fuck. Like, that's not why you're here. And if it is, I don't want you here. Like, same thing. Right. I have enough stuff. I could guide duck hunting, no problem. Is there a huge guiding thing here in Maine? No. Why? No. Because we don't have the ducks. It's not Arkansas. It's not the Midwest.
Right.
And like, I don't want to deal, like, I do it for passion. I do it for love.
Yeah, you don't do it to deal with other people. Like, if you guide, you have to, it doesn't matter how good of a fisherman you are. If you can't handle certain types of people, then you're not going to make it. Like, you're going to lose your sanity, or you're going to lose clients. Like, I mean, to be brutally honest with you, I would love to have like the same 10 to 12 clients come up, spend a weekend with me every year, and just guide the same people over and over and over, and build a relationship with those people. I have some people that go in for like 4 years, and I text them like weekly, or they're texting me about stuff. Like, they're just friends really at this point, who pay me to take them.
Exactly.
Which is cool, but at the end of the day, I still want there to be an opportunity for somebody not to feel like they're forced to go work some job they don't want to work. If they want to be in the outdoors guiding people, it's sad we don't have the duck hunting, ability to guide. It's not enough there and stuff. Like, it's sad that people can't go do that as a means of, providing for their family and doing something they want, not something they have to do,
Yeah. And I think that's where we are as a country, though, is it's so driven to just, just go to school and get a job in finance, or get a job and go to school and you be a business major. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the things that was, expressed to me as when I was looking at colleges. My old man, I wanted to go be a physical therapist, or, sports science, because I was passionate about athletics, and that was my life. And he's like, well, do you want to still be able to like hunt, fish, and do things that you also like to do? It's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, why don't you go do a job that you can afford to go take those trips? I was like, that's a really good point. And he's like, and then all you have to do is manage your personal time. And if you have the personal time to do them, do it. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people have passion anymore, and it's sad. And I feel bad, honestly. It's like, I have too many passions. Like, taking on ice fishing. Like, I never ice fished until the last 3 years. And now, fuck, I've got more shit for ice fishing. And it's like, I need less hobbies, because I am running out of room, money, and hall passes for my wife. Like,
You're a full plate guy, but like you said about the lobster stuff, I love people that have that attitude where it's like, I don't care about making money, or I don't care about this. Like, you want to educate other people, because dude, you have no idea if that little kid that you bring on the boat is someday going to be running like the Department of Marine Resources, and is going to be the one making rules about lobster fishing that are either going to save it or flush it down the toilet. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to be said about that. It's like why I like to do the fly tying classes. I like to do them at my school where I teach, because maybe, I don't know, dude, maybe I do have some kid who becomes the commissioner someday of the state and changes all these stupid stocking rules they have. I don't know, so.
Yeah, and it goes back to like, sort of like river and fishing etiquette, where like probably 5 years ago, I would never really go talk to some other random person on the river other than just like a hi, hello. Like last spring, I was up fishing the Presumpscot with my old man, and there's like 9 flies I fish a lot, and it's my go-tos, and one of them happened to be hitting unbelievable. And there's an older guy dead across the river from me watching me catch fish, and like visibly irritated with me. And I personally kind of like that a little bit, because it's like, yeah, I figured out this game, you didn't. But
right, there's that silent competition.
Exactly. And especially on the Presumpscot, like all the guys that just go up there and just drift nymphs all day. I will never. The only way I nymph fish up there is with a dropper. I will always fish it dry. I'm a dropper purist. It's bread.
That's what you catch, man.
It is. And it's like, so I go up and see. I walked over and walked around the bridge, and I went down to him and I was like, hey, he's like, man, it looked like you had a good day. And I was like, yeah. I was like, here. I took 6 flies out of my box, put them in my hand. I was like, here, I want you to have these. This is what I've been using. Like, I want you to have a good day up here. Like, he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, man, this is a river right outside of Portland, Maine. There ain't nobody here that fly fishes in the state that doesn't know you can come right here and catch fish. Mm-hmm. Like, I want you to have a better day. Like, it is what it is. I'm headed out for the day. Like, have a good day, man.
Awesome.
And it's like that. I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago without like learning and like growing as a person to want to educate and you have to, if people are involved in your sport, they're either going to turn out how you don't want them or how you do want them.
Yeah.
Why not try and push them towards the way we all want to be? And it's like, grow the sport, grow the awareness.
Well, you grow the sport, then your voices get more and more, and then you can make real changes with that when you have enough of that. It's like we made it. A few people made a stink on social media last year about, like all these, warm water fisheries that we don't close. We talked about that earlier in this podcast, but like, water 75 degrees, maybe the state should send something out suggesting you don't fish for these types of fish and you go for this type of fish. And like, we hammered social media with it for like 2 weeks. And then after the 3rd week, sure enough, they sent out an email, they put out a social media post about, these temperatures are unsafe or whatever. And it's like, you get loud, you can get your way sometimes. And I'm not a big, like, small group get loud and get your way. But when it comes to something that's like legit the best thing, like,
yeah,
we need more of that, so it's good. But hey, you guys have been awesome. We've been cranking up there.
Yeah. I just looked down. It was fucking 2 hours and fuck.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man.
Here he goes. When you were like, yeah, give me like 25 minutes. He was like, oh, well, I mean, we can start now. And I'm like, would you want to end up with like a 3-hour podcast? I was like, because anytime you're around people that share your passions, it's going to be 2 hours, and then we're all going to get in trouble with our wives and just move on with life.
Yeah, man, it's fine. My podcast usually run an hour and a half, 2 hours. I can't shut up. I'm really, I'm just passionate, and I just want to talk about it. Like, this is enjoyment. I've been looking forward to this for the last few days. And, I like talking to like-minded people, like, just obsessed with it. So.
Absolutely, man.
Well, I'm definitely going to get on the books with you for a trip. I want a smallmouth.
All right.
So
we'll get it done. August is a great time, and I'm going to July. I'm going to Montana in July for 10 days.
Nice.
Visit my cousin, do a little fishing like I was talking about. So then I'll be back, and and we can make that happen. It's just fun. So
definitely
cool. So We gotta fish sometime too, boys. You know,
Absolutely.
I like to fish.
We'll
So
get you out on the stripers.
ooh, I would like that. That's cool. Do you fly fish from?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's like, so I had started tying before kids and then stopped as soon as kids were born because kids. And then I've got this room. I mean, this room is literally filled with all of my fishing stuff. I've got a reloader sitting over here, and I've got a whole fly tying desk that just sat dormant for like 3 years. And then pandemic happened, can't go anywhere. And I was like, all right, we're going to start fly fishing again and striper fishing and really getting after it. And I must have tied probably almost 1,200 flies last year.
Oh my God. It's awesome.
Just streamers and just striper candy. And it was just like, now, like,
That got me into it.
that got all of us back into it a little bit. And I ended up buying a 20-foot center console last year strictly for fly fishing.
Yep, that's how it starts. It starts with tying one fly, catching one fish, and then you're like, I need a boat. I need a house here. I need a vacation here. I need
Well, I mean, like where we are, like
I need a third job.
I'm 1 mile from York Harbor Marina. Like that's how close so it's like it pains me how much time I do spend on the salt a little bit because I love trout fishing, but it's like, okay, I could take the time that it takes me to drive to Rangeley. I could go catch 70 stripers. Okay. And still be home and not be in trouble. And it's like, or take.
I am a little nervous to striper fish because they seem, and I've caught schoolies, but they seem like, you know, you get a 30+ inch fish on, like that's just looks like a ridiculous blast. And I don't want to like 20-inch brook trout to feel small. Let me put that. You know what I mean? Because it will after some point. So.
It does, but I think it's a different, like, it's kind of like that mindset you flip where it's like,
a different fight.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with my 3-weight, but I also love my 8-weight, and it's like,
yeah, I mean, how fun is it in the month of like early May, April to get out there with a 3-weight and just catch a little brook trout or whatever, and you're just like, it's awesome, you know, it feels great. But then like once you've done that enough, you want to upgrade and go for something else. But that's the beauty of, you know, living in a place like Maine. It's like we have this cycle, you know, every May, bang, I start with that, then I move up there, then I'm gonna do some striper and smallmouth in the summer, fall and back on the water, then I'm hunting like every year, you know, it's just awesome.
That's why, like, winter used to be my kind of like chill out time, and now we're so far deep into ice fishing. Awesome. I'm ice fishing Fridays through Sundays. I mean, it hasn't gotten as bad as like fishing where I'll go fishing every day. Yeah. And duck hunting, I changed my entire work schedule from October 1st until the end of December, and I duck hunt. I think I duck hunted 64 days last year.
And you started late too.
And I missed the entire month of October.
Good for you.
But I fish, you know, I hunt Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Mass, Connecticut. I'll fucking, it is what it is, man. It's like going down to the Farmington, that's going to be a trip this year. Like I've set my truck up and I got to build a bunk in it and then I'm good to go. Like I'm rocking the old man camper cap. I don't give a shit. I can go fucking sleep in it and fish. Yep. Let's go.
Most guys just sleep in their cab, you know?
Yeah.
Sitting upright. I've seen that plenty of times. I've done that too, but
yeah, I've done it too.
All right, boys.
Because of a hangover.
All right, man. Thanks, Aaron, for coming on.
Thank you so much, man.
We'll be in touch.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Have a good night.
Right. Later.
That's it.